Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto was primordial in My Little Pony. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Millwood and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter 1. Naruto grinned. He had finally tracked down the old horn dog's notes and, much to his delight, rather than smut, it was instructions for a space-time transportation jutsu. So now that he knew one, Tsunade wanted him to test it out to see both if it was authentic and to see if he could handle it. So here he was, standing in front of Shino Aburam, Sai, Chijai Akimichi, Sakura Haruno, Hinata Haikta, Kiba Inyazuka and Akamaru, Rock Lee, Shikamaru Nara, Tenten, Ino Yamanaka, Might Guy, Kurenai, Kakashi, Tsunade, and Anko. Okay, Naruto, try it. The fifth Hokage ordered. Naruto nodded and formed the seals before there was a flash of light and everyone blacked out. Naruto groaned as he opened his eyes. Naruto. You idiot. Sakura screamed. That woke him up fully. Who other than the dead could stand Sakura's shouting? He sat up and the others were all frowning at him. Naruto, what did you do? Kakashi asked. All I did was follow the signs like they were written in the pervy sage's notes. Where are we? Naruto said as he stood. They looked around and found themselves in a large room with an office table, a couple of couches, and a projector. The floor is a firm carpet and the walls were a dark color. We were asked to let you know what was going on. A new voice said. Naruto recognized the voice and whipped around to see a man standing behind him, as well as the woman beside him. Mom. Dad. The Uzumaki said, eyes huge. At that, the Konoha shinobi's eyes all widened. If Naruto's parents were here, that had to mean. We're all dead, aren't we? Sakura said faintly. Then turned on Naruto, fists raised. Touch my son and you will be dead. Kushina said seriously. The Haruno froze. In her mind, inner Sakura was pointing out a math problem on a massive smartboard. Fourth Hokage's wife plus angry, protective mother equals hellish agony. Conclusion. Don't do it. Sakura quickly sat down on one of the chairs and tried to get her heart to resume beating. Aka dimension. Mixed energies. One of them is chakra and the other I have no clue. Minato explained as he sat down, the other Konoha ninjas following the fourth's lead, noting that, much to Hinata's disappointment, Minato and Kushina took the ones on both sides of Naruto. Minato looked at the clock on one of the walls. If I'm guessing right, those mixed energies ought to bring whoever else was responsible for this place coming into existence right about. There was a flash of aurora-colored light and when it faded, the group looked to see a group of weirdly colored horses laying on the ground. 2 had wings, 2 were normal, and 1 had a horn, the last 3 had both wings and a horn. As the ninjas all watched, the horses changed into humans. The sign one had slightly pale blue skin and rainbow-colored hair that draped over her left shoulder and frizzed at the ends. She was dressed in a black shirt that had a cloud shooting a rainbow-colored lightning bolt portrayed on the front, dark blue cargo pants, and black Kanoichi sandals. Around her neck was a pendant of a bright blue Pegasus. The second had tan skin and had her long blonde hair tied in a low ponytail, while a western hat, with 3 apples styled on it, rested atop her head. She was dressed in a red and white plaid shirt that had the sleeves rolled up to her elbows, a pair of dark blue jeans, and some brown boots. Around her neck was a necklace with an orange horse. The third had slightly pale skin and blue eyeliner on her face. Her purple and blue hair was styled beautifully straight with curled ends and framed her face magnificently. She was dressed in a white dress what reached her knees and sandals that matched the blue streaks in her hair. Over the heart of the dress were 3 crystal-like markings, while a white unicorn pendant hung around her neck. The fourth woman had a slight purple tint to her skin that made people who noticed her think she was from an exotic country. Her dark blue hair flowed straight down her back, while the purple and red streaks added to her charm. She was dressed in a dark purple shirt and black cargo pants, while she wore dark blue sandals on her feet. A pendant of a purple unicorn with wings hung around her neck. The fifth had a light yellow tint to her skin, while her pink hair flowed down to her mid-back and curved out at the ends. She wore a green shirt with a design of 3 blue butterflies with pink wings on the front, just under her yellow Pegasus pendant. She wore a light yellow skirt that fell past her knees and green sandals. She had this incredibly shy aura. The sixth had skin with the faintest undertone of pink that many people failed to see. Her dark pink seemed to poof out all the way down to her lower back. She wore a pink shirt with the sleeves and collar lined in black that had 3 balloons styled over her heart. Her shorts were gray and stopped right at her knees, while her feet were covered in black sandals. Her attire was finished by her pink horse pendant. There was also a black horse-like creature with a twisted horn, a pair of tattered insectoid wings, a sharp pair of fangs and dark green eyes with elongated oval pupils. It also had a teal mane and tail, blue-green chitinous plating over its midsection, and wore what looked like a small black crown tipped with blue orbs. The legs, mane, and tail were full of holes, and its limbs and torso were very slender. Her wings, full of holes like her other body parts, end in sharp points. The last two had tiaras fit for royalty on their heads. The first had a slightly pale complexion and wore a beautiful white dress, while her colorful hair seemed to wave in a non-existent breeze. The other had a darker complexion, wore a midnight blue dress, and had sparkles reminiscent of stars in her waving hair. The horses, now humans, all woke slowly and then glared at the transformed bug horse thing. "Chrysalis!" the girls shouted, glaring at her. Well, Twilight and her little friends are here." The woman, Chrysalis, said, then frowned at the sight of them. Then the black horse creature was covered in bright emerald green flames, before where it stood was a chocolate-skinned woman with deep cerulean hair, a crown with a horn, and translucent cyan wings. She was dressed in a dark green kimono that was held together by a cyan obi. This form will do," she said. "What? Have any of you seen yourselves lately?" Chrysalis asked smugly. The former horses all did and instantly freaked out before the lavender one glared at the woman again. "Are you shape-shifting? What did you do to us?" The violet one shouted, but before a fight could start, Minato cleared his throat. "I hope you don't mind us," he said, drawing the others' attention to the group of ninjas. "Who are you?" the pink girl asked. Minato stood up and introduced Shino, Sai, Chinjai, Sakura, Hinata, Kiba and Akamaru, Rock Lee, Shikamaru, Tenten, Ino, Might Guy, Kurenai, Kakashi, Tsunade, Anko, Kushina, himself and Naruto to the girls. At that, for the sake of being polite, the girls all introduced themselves as Twilight Sparkle, Rarity, Applejack, Pinkie Pie, Rainbow Dash, and Fluttershy. "And this witch is Chrysalis," Twilight said, glaring at the woman in question, before there was another distortion in space, and suddenly, a book sat on the table. Naruto blinked, that hadn't been there before. He picked it up and read the title. Famfiction, The Whirling Maelstrom. "Eh?" Naruto asked. "Seems however we were all sent here resulted in the energies of our realities mixing together and made a story of it. A kind of alternate timeline book," the woman who had been the bug-winged horse creature said. "If that's the case, our way out seems tied to reading this book. Well, I would love a good fight, as long as we're all stuck here. I suppose calling a truce is the only option here." Chrysalis sighed regretfully, moving to the table and taking a seat. The others followed her example and sat down. Thought the ninjas noticed that none of the horse-turned-humans looked all that thrilled over sitting with Chrysalis. "How do you even know that?" Twilight demanded. "I don't. But you have any better ideas?" the changeling queen said with a shrug. "I'll read first, then," Twilight offered. "There's a shocker," Rainbow Dash muttered. Then turned to the rest of her friends and muttered something, to which they all nodded as Twilight opened the book to chapter 1. Chapter 1. At long last. As the chapter of the book got read, the projector started up itself and everyone looked at it to see it was going along with the story as it was being read. The fact that the screen showed the words chapter 1. At long last was a dead giveaway about that. "So we can watch and read the story, huh? Cool," Naruto said. "What's it say?" Pinkie asked excitedly. Inside a hidden shack outside of the village Konoha, a blonde teen dressed in an orange jumpsuit sat in silence and tranquility. At that line, Naruto paled. He was the main character. He felt at home here in this tiny shack, away from the village and the scornful and simple-minded villagers. In truth, the blonde pitied the villagers for their naivety and concerns to shinobi affairs and village secrets. Naruto winced. He was gonna hate this. He just knew it. The opening was bad enough. "Wait, if you're here," Twilight said, pointing at Naruto, hiding how freaked out she was at having hands and fingers behind her curiosity. "Then does that mean this story is from your point of view?" "Awesome," Pinkie Pie said, her voice full of excitement, as always. "Now we get to read Naruto's thoughts." Naruto paled. His eyes were as wide as a deer's when it's caught in headlights. His teeth clamped down on the inside of his cheek to prevent him from screaming. No, Naruto chanted in his mind. "There is no way in hell am I letting these guys read my thoughts. I don't care if I have to burn the stupid thing. They are not reading my thoughts. Not now, not ever." Naruto inhaling sharply. "Wait a minute." The blonde teen almost clapped his hands in excitement but restrained himself. That's it. All I have to do is burn the stupid book. I'm saved." Naruto bit the inside of his cheek to keep from laughing from relief. Minato and Kushina gave their son a sideways glance, then locked eyes with one another, already knowing what he was thinking. He was their kid after all. And it was like a journal or diary. He obviously wanted to keep what's in it private. After all, who would want people reading their personal thoughts? He scoffed at the last thought. Secrets. It was no secret that he was despised by the adult villagers and that they were doing everything they could to make the younger generation hate him as well. "What?" the main six cried, shocked. Luna and Celestia frowned deeply at that, seeing as the elements of harmony were concentrated condensed virtues that nearly all of Equestria lived by, they didn't like the idea of anyone having to live like that. By any chance we can skip this part? Naruto pleaded. Never. Twilight said, holding the book tighter. Ah, knock it off, egghead. So he wants to skip to where we come in, big deal. That just makes the story better. Rainbow Dash said. Not exactly, but that'll do for an excuse. Thanks Dash. Naruto thought. Well, how can we know when we come in unless we read the whole thing? Twilight said simply. I hate logic. Naruto and Rainbow Dash both groaned in unison, burying their faces in their hands and shaking their heads. Everyone watching the pair were amused. Years ago, the Sandaime Hokage a wise but at the same time foolish man. Shikamaru, Ino, and Choji all gave Naruto a look. They could guess where this was coming from. After all, years ago, Asuma-sensei had a disagreement with his father and left Konoha to pursue his personal interests. During his absence, he had become one of the 12 guardian ninja. Placed a law in regards to the blonde's condition. The law stated that mentioning his condition was punishable by death. Say what Pinky said. That pretty extreme, don't you think, Fluttershy voiced. Just wait, it gets better, Naruto muttered sourly. Of course, like all laws, the people found ways around it. They didn't speak of his condition, but that didn't stop them from hinting at it or lying about the blonde to keep the hatred for him strong. And the children of these hateful adults listened to their parents without question, like sheep trusting their shepherd without a second thought. The transformed equestrians all winced. Don't. Naruto said as everyone looked at him, he crossed his arms over his chest. Naruto rolled his eyes, save it, I don't need or want your pity. It won't do me a damn thing. That's not to say I don't appreciate it, but I've found that you can either piss and moan feeling sorry for yourself or you can get up and actually do things to improve the situation. That's why I don't accept pity. The main six, the princess sisters, and everyone else from Konoha all looked at Naruto. Kushina short her husband an ugly I told you so look. He sighed tiredly at his life so far. At this point, the people who treated him like a person was only a handful at best. The Sandaime, the father-daughter chef duo, 2 or 3 Jonin, and possibly a couple of genin. At most, the total was around 10. At least, it was around 4 or 5. Everyone winced. Naruto had told them he didn't want pity, but they still found this messed up. Hardly anything in a village totaling in the thousands, if not hundred thousands. I said don't. I don't want pity, but for the record, I wanted to skip this part, but oh no. Just had to read it. Naruto hissed, glaring at Twilight. Said Mare turned human winced at the look, but she couldn't really blame him for being upset. The teen shook his head to prevent his mind from going down that depressing road once again. He'd walked down it far too many times to even care anymore and had finally decided to ignore those who scorn him. The pony girl shred a glance and grimaced. So used to hate that he could just block it out. What was wrong with the Ponar people there? How could they do that to someone? He also made a point to visit this shack every day. His home away from home. No one knew of it, or at least he believed no one else did. In truth, the shack was actually a shrine for a lost clan. His clan. At that, Kushina's eyes widened. The clan was once a village that was allied with Konoha before it was destroyed by a joint assault from 2 of the 5 main villages. The Konoha shinobi all winced, Naruto and Kushina worst of all. How did he know this? He read it in a journal. But not just any journal. No, this journal was written and owned by a member of the clan that was alive long after the passing of the Sandaime Hokage. Kushina's jaw dropped. No way. The journal he had in his hand once belonged to Uzumaki Mido, his ancestor and wife of the late Sandaime. Kushina nodded. Knew it. For nearly 2 years, he had spent an hour or so a day reading and rereading the journal so that he could see what life in Konoha was like for the famous Uzumaki. He was currently on his 4th reread of the journal to date. Twilight whistled. She understood that. A good book always got reread. It's been so long since Hashirama-kun passed. I've lost track of how long years ago and spend most of my days in our home, watching the village grow and mature from the sapling that my husband planted into the budding tree it has become today. Yet, I can't help but feel with each passing day that I am becoming more and more unwelcome here. The villagers who once looked to me with respect and kindness now look at me with veiled fear and distrust. It escaped me for the first few years as to why this change had occurred. But I know the truth now. The Kyuubi I keep at bay is what they fear. Since the passing of Hashirama-kun, I have felt the negativity in the village grow with each passing week. They fear that I will let the fox free now that the only person who could control it is gone. I cannot help but pity them for letting fear cloud their better instincts and judgment. I was capable of sealing the fox within me without any kind of drawback, but they don't care. Hashirama-kun was capable of controlling all of the Bijuu with his infamous Mokuton, and the villagers are afraid that their last defense against the fox being freed is gone. I am counting down the days until I believe their fear will turn more hostile. Twilight blanched, all color draining from her face. Okay, so she was wrong. The blonde sighed as he finished reading the passage. He carefully closed the age journal and placed it neatly back in the shelf he found it on in the shrine. With a resigned expression, he made his way out of the shrine and back to the village. His team had their first C-rank mission today, and he had to be ready. Putting up his mask of naivety and innocence, he made his way back to the village while mentally promising to return to the shrine as soon as he came back. Hate masking me feelings like that felt like I had to strangle and suffocate my own heart to preserve my sanity. Naruto shuddered. 2 weeks later. The time skip? Kiba asked, I don't get it. Everyone else rolled their eyes. Dumb dog. The blonde walked into the shrine with a somber expression on his face. The mission had gone from bad to worse from the very beginning. Minato and Kushina paled. Sure, they knew stuff like that could happen on a mission, but the idea of their son being in harm's way naturally scared them. They were parents, after all. Starting with the ambush against their client and the reveal of him lying to them. Wave mission? Sakura asked. Naruto nodded grimly, seems like. The rest of the mission just went downhill from there, but the biggest blow to his psyche was the girl he met, seeing herself as nothing more than a tool. A weapon for a man who didn't show he cared for her until she was gone from the world. What kind of messed up place do you come from? Twilight demanded. Naruto didn't say anything. At least this alternate version of Haku was actually a girl. He still hadn't gotten over how weird the can of worms was. It hurt seeing the girl just throw away her life like that without any remorse, only to have her sacrifice be in vain due to the man she saved getting himself killed as he tried to avenge her. I can't approve of revenge, but at least he cared enough to go that far. Luna said somberly. The blonde had buried them on a hill overlooking the port village with regret as he kept thinking how things could have been different. And here come the what-ifs. Shikamaru said. He could have helped them seek asylum in the village. He could have tried harder to convince the girl that her life was more than being a tool. He could have done a lot of things, but he didn't. He had failed 2 people who could have turned a new leaf and started a fresh life. Naruto winced. His mind kept running over what he could have done while his body moved on autopilot and grabbed Mito's journal from the shelf. When he opened the book, his mind finally stopped thinking over the mission in favor of rereading Mito's thoughts. Duty more grim times. Choji muttered without enthusiasm. Kushina visited me again today. Kushina cringed and Naruto plugged his ears. He knew his mom had a happy life in spite of being a Jinchuriki, but that didn't mean he was okay with associating his mother with that damnable title. Such a sweet and spirited girl, she reminds me of how I used to be at her age. It pains my heart every time I think of how she may lose that free-spiritedness when the fox is transferred from my body to hers. My time is nearing an end while hers is barely beginning. Kushina winced. Bad memories. Minato took her hand. A large part of me is very tempted to just let the fox reside in me as I pass on, but I know Hashirama-kun sacrificed so much for the fox to remain in Konoha. It seems petty and far too prideful in favor of the village to let this continue. No kidding. Naruto hissed angrily. But I can't help but want to honor my husband's sacrifice. He was a good man and he always had the intentions of the people over his own. A good man. A good husband. The one good apple in a bad bunch, Applejack said, shaking her head with disgust. I have asked my friends to watch over Kushina and help her retain some aspect of love. It is something that I have noticed over the years I held the fox. Love counters its hate, and so long as the container has love, the hatred will stay locked away. The natives of Equestria nodded, grinning. Whoever these friends of Mito's were, they had their support. Twilight returned her focus to the story and gasped, her jaw practically unhinging itself, and her eyes went huge. No way. What is it? Celestia and Luna. Say what? The transformed ponies cried in sheer shock. We're more than happy to take upon my request, but they need Kushina to summon the contract in order for them to aid her. SS summon. Contract. Rarity sputtered, flabbergasted. Queen Chrysalis laughed, she wished she could tape this. I still can't help but slap myself at the fact that I have forgotten where the contract resides. Oh, come on. She lost something like that. Everyone shouted. The one thing I believed I could do to help Kushina, and I don't even have the necessities to do so. Kami-sama, have mercy on this foolish woman for her mistake and watch over Kushina-chan. Heaven knows that she will need it for the life she will soon live. Minato and Naruto both growled at that. The blonde closed the journal with a sad sigh. When he first read that passage, he tried to look up information regarding Kushina, Celestia, or Luna. Unfortunately, he was unsuccessful in finding anything about them. Minato and Kushina went livid at that. Couldn't find. Oh, the third and the other political figures are so damn lucky we're dead. Kushina snarled. After weeks of searching, he finally figured that they were some kind of secret that only certain people were privy to know. Minato stabbed a tri-pronged kunai into the table, furious. Naruto had more right than anyone to know who they were. Even now, he still wonders. Should be the word wondered, actually. Twilight said. The other main 6 members all looked at one another, then checked the clock. Rainbow Dash held out a hand expectantly. The others grumbled and passed her some money. Twilight's OCD bet on how long until she found something to bug her about the way the story was written. The multicolored female said, pocketing the bits with a smirk. But those 3 were. He knows the Kushina couldn't be alive since the Kyuubi now resides in his body, but that didn't mean that Celestia or Luna were dead yet. Everyone from Equestria, with the exception of Chrysalis, glared at Naruto. Relax, it's the version of him that lives in this story's reality. Getting mad at him for what some other version of himself thought is pretty pointless. The changeling queen smirked. Though she did like the idea of Celestia and Luna being dead. The others stopped glaring and returned their attention to the book. He looked out the shrine window and frowned at the darkening sky. It was late and he couldn't sleep here since the Hokage could have a need to contact him. So, he placed the book back and made his way back to his apartment where an empty room full of loneliness awaited him. Just how many times were Naruto's parents and the equestrians going to cringe? 2 days later. Another time skip already? Tenten asked. The blonde was seen leaning against a wall with a journal he was rereading on its last passage. Kushina bit her lip. She knew where this was going. My time has almost reached its end. I can feel the fox trying desperately to escape my weakening body. The transfer is set to happen this evening and I know that Kushina-chan is still afraid. Understatement, the Redeed shuddered. I had explained to her exactly what was going to happen the week before and she took it precisely as I predicted she would. Fearful and panicked. Why wouldn't she be? A cataclysmic creature is being placed into her and she is the only thing holding it back from escaping and causing mass mayhem. Of course she'd be afraid. But no pressure, right? Naruto growled, his nails turning into claws and raking gouges into the table. I worry for her. The other Uzumaki have left the village, leaving just me and Kushina-chan within its walls. She'll be alone with no family to call upon and a burden fit for a village full of jonin within her. Such a life I would not wish upon even my greatest enemy. How could they do this to people? Fluttershy whispered, aghast. I tried finding that blasted scroll again, but I was once again unsuccessful. Even my friends, the ones I see as family, will be unable to assist her. My heart is breaking as I keep thinking of how her life will be in the village as the Kyuubi Jinchuriki and last remaining Uzumaki. Kushina bit back a sob at the memory of thinking about that. My time is nearly spent. I have but one last thing to write to whoever has found this. Remember that your family is everything. A village will always betray you eventually, but family stays loyal no matter what. If you, my dear reader, are of my clan, then this lesson is our clan's creed. Family over pride, family over glory, family over all. Never forget. The main 6 and Princess sisters all smiled softly at that. It was a good creed. One worth supporting. The blonde had a hollow smile on his face as he closed the journal. If his clan's creed was all about family loyalty, then where was his family? Why were he and this Kushina woman alone in the village without any of the family there to help them? Everyone cringed while Kushina was conflicted between strangling her husband and hugging the daylights out of her son. She told him the villagers wouldn't take things well. But no. Damn his faith in others. Those stupid villagers were too hostile to want to let go of their hate. Preserve the balance of power between the nations and the tailed beasts. Yeah, right. He sighed sadly as he made to return the book but tripped on a loose floorboard. He fell towards the bookshelf and reached out to one of the many shelves to steady himself, but his hand grasped a scroll instead and he braced for the impact with the floor. Turning point? Everyone asked, starting to grin. However, he met resistance as if he was grasping a door wall. He looked to his arm and saw it pulling on the scroll from the shelf. His head tilted in curiosity before he heard a loud and echoing click from behind the shelf. Turning point. Twilight said with satisfaction. Before his eyes, the shelf and the wall it leaned against spun around and revealed a hidden tunnelway that was lit by old torches. He slowly stood back to his feet and headed inside, noticing that the torches had seals on them that were most likely keeping them lit. Minato and Kushina grinned. This was getting better for their son's other. During his many visits to this shrine, he didn't just read the journal. No, he also read and studied the many scrolls that went over lessons on Fuinjutsu and was instantly amazed at how useful and diverse the art was. After 2 years of visiting the shrine, he believed that he was at an adept level. Minato whistled and tousled his son's hair. Kushina hugged him fully proud. But he needed an experienced Fuinjutsu user to examine his skill level. Tenten frowned at that. Seeing as how she was good at Fuinjutsu, if she were experienced enough, she would have gladly given Naruto her 2 cents on the subject. As he made his way down the tunnel, he noticed that the air had gone from ancient and tranquil to inviting and warm. His curiosity was growing at the feeling as he finally entered a small rounded room with a single pedestal in the center that had a scroll and piece of paper on it. Oh, everyone perked up. Check the secret passage. She forgot to check the secret passage, Minato said, shaking his head haplessly. He approached the pedestal and read the paper that rested on the scroll. To the reader. This scroll is a prized possession of the people that hail from the islands with swirling tides. If you are of this swirling clan, then open the scroll and claim what is yours by right. If you are not, then turn back or risk being lost to this world forever. Well, that's encouraging. Anko pipped up. Islands with swirling tides, murmured the blonde before the answer came to him. The Uzumaki. Setting the paper aside, he grabbed the scroll and observed the design. The scroll itself was a dull yellow with the edges splashed with vibrant red in a wave-like design. He sat on the ground and opened the scroll, looking to the many Uzumaki who signed it. The most recent being Uzumaki Mito. Until NOW Pinkie Pie cheered. Everyone grinned and nodded in agreement. This must be that scroll she tried to find, he muttered to no one as he bit his thumb and began to sign the scroll. After reading about Mito having a summoning scroll, the teen had asked the Sandame about them. The aged Cage was happy to tell the boy the mechanics behind summoning contracts, scrolls, and animals. He told of how the scroll works, how each contract had a different sequence of seals, and how each summoning animal clan had different rules or guidelines for their summoners to follow. Laddie explained that. Naruto said. Using the knowledge he was given, the blonde signed his name in his own blood before he placed a bloody handprint of his right palm underneath it. Just as he finished, he felt a pull on his form before he disappeared in a plume of smoke. Huh? Buddy Pinkie said, stunned. Will you horse girls relax? It's just reverse summoning he's going to where you guys from. Tenten said. Twilight immediately stuck the book back in her face, suddenly all the more excited. Summon Realm, moments before. In the throne room of a castle that rested on clouds. The equestrians all smiled and sighed blissfully, but Chrysalis stuck her finger in her mouth, tongue hanging out, the universal sign for gag me. Two creatures with having a calm discussion about the worrying news concerning their summoning race as of late. Creatures? The main six all shouted in outrage. The first had the appearance of a large white horse. However, it also had a pair of white wings and a horn on its head. The mane and tail of the horse was also strange. They were blue, green, purple, and pink, and had a flowing motion even as it stood in place. On its flank was a mark in the design of the sun, while it wore noble jewelry around its neck and on its head. Its bright purple eyes contained much wisdom, kindness, and authority. The second creature was the same as the first, but had many differences. For starters, the color of its coat, wings, and horn were a very dark, almost midnight, blue. The mane and tail had the colors of a clear night sky, complete with sparkles to represent the stars, and was translucent enough to see through it at some points. The mark on its flank was in the design of a white crescent moon, and the jewelry it wore was near black in color, with the one around the neck bearing the mark on its flank. Like the first, its dark blue eyes showed wisdom and authority. But the kindness seemed to be more regretful than anything. These two were Celestia and Luna, the head summons of the Uzumaki clan summoning contract. They were known as Alicorns. Horses with the wings of Pegasi and the horns of unicorns. Alcorns, what a stupid name. Sounds like some freaky convenience store snack food. Kiba laughed. A second later, he was tackled by the main six, who proceeded to beat the Inuzuka senseless until a green light surrounded them and they were lifted into the air. Hey. Let us go. He deserves it. Oh, I would gladly, you have no idea how much fun it is for me to see you goody-goody so outraged and violent. But stop and think how those princesses of yours would take it if they learned they were used as why you killed someone in cold blood by beating them to death, all because the mass that was supposed to go to developing a brain went to their mouth instead. Chrysalis cackled. The ponies that had turned into humans gasped, horrified, then turned to Celestia and Luna, who were both frowning at them with deep disapproval. Seeing their reactions, Chrysalis released them and they sat back down. We are running out of time, my sister, Luna stated in a sorrowful tone. After Mito's passing, we have lost all contact with the outside world. Soon our contract will vanish. Celestia nodded with a slight frown. Indeed, this is a most troubling time. If an Uzumaki doesn't find our contract soon, we will no longer be considered summoning creatures and will be forced to leave our realm and live amongst the humans in their realm. Much like the dragons were forced to years ago. The main six growled. Alternate world or not, they didn't like the idea of Equestria losing everything all because of a misplaced roll of paper. Luna gazed out the window of their castle with a sense of fading hope. What should we tell our people? The white alicorn sighed and was about to speak before the two felt a tug on their minds and turned their heads to the scroll on the wall next to them so quick that they could have suffered whiplash. On the scroll, underneath Mito's name, they saw a name start to slowly appear. Uzumaki Luna began. Naruto, Celestia finished in slight shock as the name was then accompanied by a handprint. As soon as it was there, Celestia turned to her sister and they both nodded before they focused their power on the scroll. Onumton. Jayaku Kuchius, Yin-Yang release. Reverse summon. They cried out together as the newest name on the scroll lit up and a plume of smoke appeared in the center of the room. But we can't do that. Celestia cried in surprise. Alternate world. Rainbow Dash said. Wait. Twilight cried, that's what happened, it's how we're all here. Somehow the wavelengths of equestrian magic and the stuff you ninjas all use must have crossed. When it cleared, the two alicorns gazed at the human they had brought to their realm. He stood at a height of 5'8", had hair as gold as sunlight, had strange whisker-like markings on his cheeks, and blue eyes as bright as sapphire. He wore blue shinobi sandals, an orange jumpsuit with some blue and white thrown in, and a blue headband with the symbol of Konoha on it. On the back of his jumpsuit was the red spiral of the Uzumaki clan. Well, not a bad level of attention to detail. Naruto shrugged. He was coughing and waving his arm around to clear the smoke before he focused on his surroundings. The room he was in seemed fit for royalty. Well Pinky said. And he couldn't help but silently marvel at the decorations that brought out the nobility of the room. The clearing of the throat was heard and he turned to see the two alicorns gazing at him. One in shock and the other with a kind smile. The smiling white one stepped forward until she was right in front of him and bent her head down to look him in the eyes. He was confused as to what she was doing, but he didn't turn his gaze from hers. Well, at least he isn't rude about it. Kushina said with approval. After some time, she pulled back and nodded with her smile growing ever so slightly. Welcome to our realm, young Uzumaki. You cannot fathom how long our people have awaited a summoner to arrive here. I am Celestia, one of the head summons. Head summon? Oh, that's just she's the elder of the two rulers of Equestria and controls the sun. Simply calling her a head summon is an insult. Control over Tsunade started to say. Primordial incarnate with control over the day, she can. Her little sister has control over the night. Chrysalis explained boredly. And the raiser of the sun in this realm. Behind me is my sister Luna, the other head summon and raiser of the moon. Thanks for explaining that. Naruto told Chrysalis. The changeling queen rolled her eyes. The blonde leaned to his side slightly so that he could get a better look at Luna and offered a small wave. She returned the gesture with a small nod and a faint smile. As his blue eyes returned to Celestia's purple ones, he questioned, so, how did I get here? Did the scroll bring me? In a sense, answered the white alicorn as she motioned for him to follow her with her wing. The three of them were walking down the hallway of the castle as she continued, the scroll acted as a medium for my sister and I to use our powers to bring you here. We reverse summoned you so that we could see you for ourselves. Summoners can be summoned too? Asked the Uzumaki in slight surprise. That is correct, Luna answered. It usually only occurs when a summoned clan has some important news for their summoner. In this sense, we did it to test your worth for ourselves. The blonde nodded as he glanced at the decorated halls. The Sandaime had told him that, while also having rules and guidelines, summoned clans test their potential summoners to see if they have what it takes. So, what is my test? Celestia led the two of them to a chariot of sorts that had a team of Pegasi leading it. Really? Horses with horse-drawn transportation. Really? Ino asked. Other reality, it's not that way where we're from. Twilight said before going back to the book. For your test to occur, we must go down to the lower city. Once there, I will call the 6 who will test you. Naruto nodded and carefully stepped inside the chariot with them, but he had to hold on to one of their legs since it wasn't built to carry humans. Really? We couldn't tell. Choji chuckled. The ride itself was actually enjoyable to him. The feeling of the wind in his face and the peacefulness of the realm itself was indescribable to one who knew nothing but scorn and rejection his entire life. Naruto's parents as well as the main 6 sighed in relief, seemed things were already getting better for Naruto's other shelf. Once the chariot landed, the 3 stepped off and Celestia had her horn glow a bright white before a shot of energy flew into the air and exploded much like a flare. They will be here shortly, she assured as they waited patiently. Sure enough, not much time later, the blonde caught sight of 6 ponies calmly heading their way. Twilight? Calm? Rainbow Dash said. What? Twilight snapped at her friend's incredulous tone. When it comes to Celestia, you're even more crazy and tightly wound up than Pinkie Pie. Rarity said. Twilight blushed in embarrassment at that. Worst part was it was true. What was more, she was proud of it. The first was a unicorn with a light purple coat and horn. Her mane and tail were colored dark blue with a streak of rose and violet. She had purple eyes and a mark on her flank that was in the design of a rose-colored 6-point star surrounded by white sparkles. Twilight grinned. The next was a simple pony with an orange coat and a blonde mane and tail. Both the mane and tail were held like a human's ponytail, and her green eyes brought some distinction to her. She wore what Naruto could only assume was a cowgirl hat, and her flank had a mark in the design of 3 apples on it. Applejack tilted her hat at the mention of her other self. The third was a Pegasus with a bright blue coat and wings. She had red-violet eyes while her hair and mane were colored like a rainbow and were slightly spiked, making her appear to be a tomboy to Naruto. Her flank's mark was in the design of a cloud with a rainbow coming out of it like a bolt of lightning. "Sup, Rainbow Dash," said, grinning as she swung her legs over and propped her feet on the table. The fourth was another Pegasus with a pale yellow coat and smooth light pink hair. She had cyan blue eyes, and her mark was designed as 3 blue butterflies with pale purple wings. She had this timid yet innocent aura about her that reminded Naruto of that Hyuga girl that was in his graduating class. Hinata and Fluttershy both blushed at that. The fifth was a unicorn with a white coat and horn. Her purple-blue mane and tail were styled into 2 long curls, giving Naruto the feeling that she enjoyed style. Her azure blue eyes were enhanced by the sky blue eyeshadow, and her mark looked like 3 bright blue diamonds. Rarity nodded in satisfaction at the mention of her other self. The last mare was a pony that already had Naruto giving an unnoticeable smile. She had a light pink coat that had a mark in the design of 3 balloons, 1 yellow and 2 blue on her flank. Her hair and mane were a darker, almost red, pink, and were both poofed in a way that made her already happy and cheerful aura more pronounced. She had bright blue eyes like his and a near-constant smile of joy on her face. Pinkie Pie whooped. When they reached the 2 alicorns and human teen, Celestia turned to the blonde and declared, "Naruto, these will be your testers." She then gestured to each and said, "They are Twilight Sparkle, Applejack, Rainbow Dash, Fluttershy, Rarity, and Pinkie Pie." Luna then gestured to the Uzumaki and introduced, "Girls, this is Uzumaki Naruto. You are to see if he has what it takes to be our summoner." The pony humans glared at Naruto, but he held up his hands. "How many times will I have to say this? Other. Reality. I know you guys aren't summons." Twilight stepped up and asked, "How do we test him?" Celestia smiled and answered, "See if he has the qualities of the elements of harmony." "The what?" Naruto asked. While Naruto looked confused, the 6 mares nodded and Rainbow Dash stepped forward. "Okay, I'll go first. My element is loyalty, so let's see if you got what it takes." When he nodded, she asked, "If you had to choose between your home and someone you cherish, what would you choose?" "Really? Just a Q&A session. That's it? That's the best you can come up with for something so important?" Chrysalis laughed, causing the main 6 to. His answer was immediate. "I'd choose my loved one. Mito-sama said that family is everything, and while I have no family of my own, I have those who I will protect with my life." "Sounds like you, exactly," Sai said. Rainbow Dash looked over at the orange and black-clad Bland and grinned. She could work with a guy like this, no sweat. Ash looked to the 2 alicorns and they nodded, showing that he was being truthful. The Pegasus nodded to him and said, "You passed my test, Blondie." Applejack was next and she tipped her hat to him in greeting. "Alright partner, my element is honesty. I want you to tell me something truthful that comes from your heart and soul." The blonde looked slightly reluctant to do so, but he nodded. I hold the Kyuubi no Kitsune within me, just as Mito-sama and Kushina-san did in the past." The orange-coated mare looked to her leaders, who both nodded sadly, and offered the blonde her hoof. When he slowly grabbed it, she pulled him in for a gentle hug, surprising him greatly. "No kidding, he's being hugged by a chatty barn animal," Sakura said. "You have honesty, even amongst strangers. But you should also know that you have our support, Naruto. We don't see you as the fox and we never will. Remember that. And look at that, a chatty barn animal is better at following my dying wish than all of Konoha. Any more commentary, Haruno-san?" Minato said. Sakura went pale and closed her mouth, shaking her head, while the rest of the Konoha half of the group, except for Naruto, all looked ashamed. When they separated, the Uzumaki nodded to her in thanks while Rarity stepped forward. She spent a good 5 minutes circling him and humming in thought, while most of the other mares rolled their eyes at what she was bound to say. When she finally stopped circling him, she frowned slightly. "Well darling, I believe that a change of wardrobe is long overdue." "Indeed. He needs less orange," Rarity said. "Hey." Naruto snapped, "I like orange. Whether you pass or not, visit my store when we're finished and I'll see what I can whip up for you." "Really? That's the first thing you say to him?" Rarity's friends all asked her, giving her flat looks. It didn't really surprise them. "It's like there's 2 Inos and one of M's a horse," Choji told Shikamaru in a loud whisper. Inara nodded. "I know, I'm officially scared," he muttered back before Ino knocked both her male teammates over the head with a huff. "Okay," he said a little unsurely, making her nod with a smile. "Very good. Now dear, my element is generosity. Have you ever given or done something for someone with no expectancy of compensation?" The blonde closed his eyes and searched his memories before his first meeting with Haku came to mind. While his face grew depressed due to knowing she was dead, he answered, "Yes, I helped a girl look for herbs to help heal the one she cherished most. I never expected anything in return and just wanted to help her." After receiving confirmation, Rarity smiled and placed a hoof on his shoulder. When he looked into her eyes, she nodded to him. "You are a generous man, Naruto. I can easily see that. You know what it's like to have nothing and strive to prevent others from experiencing that. You pass my test." Kushina winced. As proud as she was at her son having these qualities, the know what it's like to have nothing part bothered her for her inability to be there for Naruto. The Uzumaki nodded in thanks as Fluttershy nervously stepped up. He offered her a reassuring smile, which seemed to help her confidence. Naruto does have that effect on people. Hinata assured Fluttershy, while the rest of the Konoha group snickered. As she spoke, "My element, Naruto, is kindness. How do you treat those you meet?" "To be honest, most people I meet are not exactly kind to me." Fluttershy winced at that. "I tend to ignore those people now and treat those who see me as a person with respect." At that, the animal-loving Pegasus smiled. The yellow Pegasus nodded sadly. It is hard to be kind in a place that has none. Minato flinched as Kushina glared at him again. "But, as long as you have those who care, you will never lose that kindness." She then gathered up some courage and hugged him like Applejack did, surprising both him and the others. No kidding. They gawked at the image the projector showed, unable to fully believe Fluttershy could be that forward. "I can tell that you are a pure and kind person, Naruto. You have regrets about things you could have changed, but you were kind enough to give those people you think you failed a respectable send-off." His eyes widened at what she was getting at as she let him go. "Those two Zabuza and Haku, they were your enemy, but you tried to help them turn over a new leaf. Kindness to your enemy is the greatest of all, Naruto. You pass my test." "Please tell me she can't read minds?" Naruto asked. "I'm just good with reading others," Fluttershy assured him. The blonde nodded as he wiped away a stray tear. Pinkie Pie was next as she bounced up to him with a smile. "Hi, I'm Pinkie Pie. It's nice to meet you. Word of advice. Give her Dekif," Lee said. Fenton looked at her teammate incredulously. "You're saying that, Lee? You?" "What?" Lee asked with a blink. He couldn't help but smile at her and greeted back, "I'm Naruto. Nice to meet you too, Pinkie." She nodded and sat down in front of him. "Okie dokie Loki, my element is laughter. Got any times where, instead of acting negatively, you smiled and laughed it off?" "Too many times to count, and can I just give this as a word of advice? She must never be allowed anywhere near an energy drink," Naruto said. Pinkie looked confused while the other five all paled, their pupils shrinking as their eyes went huge and their mouths dropped. The idea was honestly terrifying. "Thanks for putting that in our heads, Blondie. We'll be sure to enjoy the nightmares." Rainbow Dash snapped at him. He closed his eyes and thought over her question. One thing came to mind, but he was unsure if it would count. "Well, before I started to just ignore the people who treated me unfairly, I used to prank them to get back at them. I had fun with my pranks and made sure that no one was hurt by them." He then looked at Pinkie with an anxious gaze. "Does that count?" Well, knowing Pinkie, the others from Equestria all thought. The pink mare nodded. "Yep. You could have made those pranks harmful, but you didn't and got a good laugh out of something that most people would be negative about. You pass my test." He nodded in thanks before she got in his face and asked, "By the way, mind sharing your pranks with me? I always love a good prank." "Say no. Say no, say no, say no, say no, say no, say no, say no. Please say no." Twilight, Rainbow Dash, Rarity, Fluttershy, Applejack all thought, panicked. Seeing their reactions, Chrysalis made a note to get Pinkie Pie completely wired by having her drink an entire silo full of an energy drink cocktail on April Fool's Day. Back in Equestria, Discord suddenly froze. "Who's trying to steal my job?" he shouted. There was a line between mischief and evil, he knew that better than anyone. But whoever gave off that malicious glee he just felt wasn't just evil, they were a monster. The others grew worried while Naruto actually grinned. "Sure, I don't mind. And we're doomed," Twilight said. The happy pony cheered before she went back to the others and Twilight stepped up. "Okay, my test is actually very simple. My element is magic, so I want you to release as much energy as you can. Okay?" At that, the Konoha side of the group all looked at one another, then burst out laughing so bad they all nearly passed out. Telling that to Naruto of all people. "Ho, that was just a joke." The blonde nodded with a faint smirk before he made a ram seal and flared his chakra. To the others, it was like a tidal wave of energy flowed from him and washed over them. A literal dome of chakra surrounded him before it slowly grew larger in diameter and covered them all. In the center was Naruto releasing the energy with no sign of stress or exhaustion on his face. Incredible was the collective thought of the mares, while Twilight had Naruto stop releasing his chakra. Chrysalis looked at Naruto with sudden interest, as if studying a menu and finding something she was considering to order. Changelings did feed off energy, after all. And if this much output was only a sample, then he could easily feed her whole hive. When the energy died down, the unicorn nodded to the Uzumaki. I have to say, your energy output is unreal. I don't think I've ever witnessed someone with that level of energy in them. You passed my test, Naruto. The flying colors, if I do say so myself. Naruto smirked. Haha, pat yourself on the back. Twilight said. She wished there weren't as many interruptions so she could finish. The Uzumaki nodded with a faint smile before he turned to Celestia and Luna. Well, you certainly have the requirements needed to be our summoner, commented the white alicorn. Luna nodded. To think that after nearly 40 years we finally have someone worthy enough to be our summoner. You honor us, young Uzumaki. A decade short of a half-century, no wonder. That would deal a nasty blow to any summons not having anyone new for that long. Not that you girls are summons. Minato observed. Naruto felt a little awkward at hearing that. He didn't really feel like he did anything all that special, but it still felt nice to have people thanking him. Even if said people were summoned creatures. Well, I have no qualms with you being our summoner, Naruto. However, you should know that the 8 of us here with you are the only ones capable of being summoned at this time, Celestia explained. Why's that? Asked the Uzumaki. Over the years we were without a summoner, many of the ponies who were volunteer summons resigned themselves from the list. The number grew higher and higher over time until it was just the 8 of us left. As such, your summoning options are somewhat limited and… It doesn't matter to me, interrupted the blonde, making the others look to him. Whatever help and support you can offer me is better than having none at all. Even if it was just one of you that I could summon, I'd still be grateful. So, don't worry about numbers because I'm sure you all are more than enough. At least our others'll be working for a guy that's aiming for quality over quantity. Rainbow Dash said. The mares were taken aback by his sincerity and couldn't keep the smiles from forming on their faces. You have our gratitude, Naruto, replied the white alicorn with a small bow that was followed by the others. When they straightened themselves, she continued, now, I believe you have some clothes to replace. At that, the other members of the main 6 all saluted while humming a solemn funeral march, making Rarity huff. Rarity was quick to step up and grab Naruto's sleeve with her teeth before Rarity's shop. Now, just hold still darling and I'll whip you up a dashing outfit. Any preferences? Asked Rarity as Naruto stood in the middle of her shop. Something that's both sturdy and allows me to blend into most crowds, he answered with a shrug. Not too bad given he's a ninja. Shino said. Color preference? She asked as she stood next to the fabrics. Dark browns with some white thrown in. Also, could you place the yuzu swirl somewhere on it? Naruto gawked. Okay, what was wrong with the other him? The yuzu swirl he liked, but dark browns and whites. He wouldn't be caught dead in something so drab. She smiled and nodded as she measured his arm length, torso, waist, leg length and neckline. After that, she grabbed some dark brown fabric and set to work. I have an idea of the outfit and your measurements already, dear. Come back in an hour or so and it'll be finished. Naruto nodded and left the shop only to run into Applejack. Howdy there, partner. Think you can help me with something? Sure. Why not? Naruto asked. Sure. What did you need? The orange mare led him to her apple farm and pointed to the apple-filled trees. I reckon you could be a mighty big help in getting those down. I usually just kick the tree and shake them loose, but my leg has been sore for some time. Wait. Hold up. Rainbow Dash said suddenly, then turned to the country pony. Your legs get sore. What? You have seen my orchard. You think it's easy bucking that many trees? Applejack said. Her friends all nodded. Think you could help? The blonde didn't answer and just made some clones that each went to a separate tree. The many blondes used their chakra to walk up the tree and pull the apples off of the branches. Applejack hummed thoughtfully at that. Multiplying and sticking to the trees so he could just walk up them. That'd be really useful. Applejack waited below with various baskets for them to toss the apples into. It took some time to collect them all, but they got it done within a half hour. Ha half and Applejack sputtered faintly, then turned to Naruto, okay you're hired. Everyone chuckled at that before looking back at the projection screen again. Thank you kindly, Naruto. Don't think I could have done it without you. The blonde wiped some sweat from his brow and replied, no problem, Applejack. Glad I could help. Hey Blondie. Called out Dash as she descended from the sky next to them. Rarity said that she's almost done and that you could head back to her shop. I thought she said it'd take an hour. Applejack rolled her eyes. She must really not like your jumpsuit and work double time to get your outfit ready. The blonde looked to his attire and sweat dropped at how beat up and worn out it looked. Yay. Missing an H at the end of that yeah. Twilight noted distastefully. Rainbow Dash held out a hand, palm up and expectant. Stop smirking. Rarity shouted as she and the others handed her a few more bits. Not even I could lose betting on Twilight's OCT, Tsunade said to herself. I think you're right, he said as he made his way back over to Rarity's. As soon as he stepped inside, he was pulled into a changing room where a neatly placed set of clothing was waiting for him. Hurry up now, darling. I need to see how you look in that masterpiece I made for you. Indeed. Present it. Rarity agreed with her other dramatically. Naruto chuckled at her antics and stripped himself out of his jumpsuit before he grabbed the clothes and began putting them on. Unknown to him, the white unicorn had called over the others to see how he would look. Having us all there waiting outside his changing room seems creepy. Pinkie Pie said. When he stepped out, Rarity had a look of pride on her face as the others complimented the outfit. As well they should. Rarity said. The Uzumaki was dressed in black boots and some gray-brown pants with a kunai pouch strapped to his right leg. Holding up the pants was a black belt with a yuzu swirl designed as a belt buckle. On his torso, he wore a white long-sleeved shirt underneath a greenish-brown collared vest. Over it all, he wore a dark brown hooded coat that reached the back of his knees and had the hood down behind his back. To finish it off, he wore white gloves on his hands that had the yuzu swirl on them in black. Naruto looked like he was going to hurl. Naruto heard them murmuring amongst themselves and asked, so, how do I look? Celestia smiled to him and nodded. You look very sophisticated and professional, Naruto. Naruto shuddered at that. Sure his other looked good, but that seemed like something from 60 or 70 years ago. You've really outdone yourself, Rarity. Thank you, my lady, replied the stylish unicorn. Now Naruto, those clothes have some mesh armor sewed into the fabric to increase their durability. I'll get to work on making some extras for you, but I must say that you look quite dashing. Thanks Rarity, said the blonde as he rubbed his head bashfully. He then turned back to Celestia and queried, so, what happens now? That needs to be a dress or the story can't continue. Anko observed. Now, we send you back to where you found the scroll. Be sure to keep it safe and remember where you put it. We don't want to risk waiting another 40 years before a summoner calls upon us again. At his nod, she continued, now, over the years we each have gained some experience in what you shinobi refer to as Kekkei Genkai. Eh? Twilight said, interested in the term. We won't go into details now. Oh come on. Twilight said, then turned to the ninjas, explain. Now. She ordered. Later. Kurenai said. But you will see for yourself soon. For now, just continue your ninja career and don't hesitate to summon us. Whether to have us assist you or to just talk. The blonde nodded again before he bowed respectfully to them all. You all have my gratitude. What you have done for me these past few hours is more than anyone has ever done. Kushina looked ready to explode at that. I promise not to tarnish the name of both my clan and your people. The others smiled at his promise while Pinkie went up and hugged him. Be sure to have some fun, Naruto. You better not become a stick in the mud. God no. That's Sasuke's job. Naruto laughed in agreement. Pinkie looked at Naruto. Don't know who Sasuke is, but I already don't like him. He chuckled at her wording and replied, I promise, Pinkie, so long as you and the others promise to be there for me when I need you. Fair enough. Pinkie said. She smiled and declared, cross my heart and hope to fly, stick a cupcake in my eye. Cupcake? Choji drooled. What's wrong with flying? Rainbow Dash said with narrowed eyes. The other mares chuckled at the pink pony's promise poem before the two alicorns sent the blonde back. Luna turned to her sister and commented, he'll help us and his clan return to their former glory. I know it. Naruto and Kushina smiled at that, knowing the Uzumaki clan was scattered. The idea of them getting all back together sounded good to them. The white alicorn nodded and added, not to mention we'll be with him every step of the way. At long last our bond with the Uzumaki clan will be reformed. And that's the end of chapter 1. Twilight said, closing the book. Chapter 2. Examination Part 1. Within the Uzumaki shrine, a plume of smoke erupted and revealed a newly dressed Naruto. He coughed slightly as some dust mixed with the smoke and entered his lungs. Definitely not the best way to travel, he muttered. Why not? It's quite fast, and fast travel means more can get done. Lee said. Rainbow Dash looked at Lee a moment, then turned to his teammate, does he have an off button, or at least a volume control knob? The flyer asked. Fenton moaned longingly at the thought, I wish. She could not handle being around Guy-sensei and Lee all the time alone. It was why she hung around Niji so much before he died, she just needed someone sane around her after exposure to the freaks. Between coughs as he made his way back to the Kama contract. Chrysalis chuckled at the scowls the princesses and main six had as being reduced to summons in the reality of the book. She really wished she could tape this. He removed the scroll from its pedestal and walked back into the main room of the shrine before he started to search for a sealing scroll. Well at least he's taking steps to avoid misplacing that scroll. Rarity said. It took about 3 minutes before he found one and unsealed the contents of it. From the scroll came a book and a hiate with a yuzu swirl on the head plate. He pocketed the hiate before he sealed away the contract into the sealing scroll. Once he pocketed that as well, he picked up the book and looked at the cover. The Legend of the Rakuto Sennin, he read. The jaws of all the shinobi all dropped. Before he pocketed the book to read later. He gazed out the window and saw that it was barely around midday and decided to go visit the Ichiraku stand. I swear, why don't you just move in there, you go to that place so much? Sakura said, annoyed. Naruto didn't respond to that but personally felt that wasn't a bad idea. His time in the summon realm left him quite hungry. Konoha streets. With his hood shadowing his face, the blonde Uzumaki made his way through the bustling people going about their everyday business. A sigh escaped his lips as he was bumped into by various villagers. The streets aren't usually this crowded, he mused with a slight frown. Something big must be going on. Well, if it's after the wave mission, Sakura said. He finally made it to his favorite ramen stand and stepped inside before he could be bumped into once more. He noticed that Hada Kakashi, his sensei. Means teacher. Shino supplied. Was there and appeared to be waiting for someone. Most likely him. Curious as to what the lazy. Twilight looked ready to faint at the idea of a lazy teacher. Jonin could want with him, he stepped up to the man while removing his hood. Sensei, what are you doing here? Kakashi sensei waiting for someone. Either getting to know these guys took longer than I thought or the world's coming to an end. Naruto snickered, causing everyone else, but said Jonin to laugh. He asked in a calm tone, betraying the mask of idiocy most people were so accustomed to. The silver-haired man turned his uncovered eye to his blonde student and gave a curious glance to his attire. Trying out a new look, Naruto. The Uzumaki took a brief look to his new wardrobe and rubbed his head with a straight face. With a shrug, he answered, I figured it was time for a change. Someone took the time to make this for me, and I think it's a lot better than my old jumpsuit. Of course it is. Rarity nodded firmly. The Jonin nodded before he gestured to the stools. Why don't we grab a bite to eat while I tell you what's come up? I'll pay for your first 2 bowls. The blonde nodded in thanks, and the 2 shinobi ordered their food before Kakashi stated, I decided to enter you and your teammates in the Chunin exams. I already told them about it and gave them the forms needed to enter. Sasuke seemed eager, not a surprise there, and Sakura looks unsure, but I don't think she'll back out. What's so bad about exams? I love 'em. Twilight said. You'll see. Book'll most likely explain what kind of exams they are. Naruto said. I assume that the 3 of us as a whole are needed in order to take the test. Questioned the whiskered genin as Am brought them their first bowls of ramen. Yep. The Konoha ninjas all drawled. The Jonin was slightly taken aback at both Naruto's calm demeanor and his observant question. That would freak out anyone who knew you as an idiot. Sakura said, only to freeze at the killer intent Minato and Kushina sent at her. That's correct. If even one of you does not want to take them, then the other 2 can't take them either. It's meant to be taken as a team. Well, that's hardly fair. If one doesn't want it, none of them can do it. Rarity said. The blonde finished his first bowl and nodded to his teacher. I think we'll be taking it, sensei. As you said. Sasuke is eager, Sakura will most likely agree, and you should know my answer. The female ramen chef brought him his second bowl with a smile that he returned before he turned to face the one-eyed Jonin. The question I have for you, sensei, is if you think we are all ready. Meaning, Kakashi asked. Sasuke is ready due to having been trained at a young age, and I'm confident in my own abilities. But what of Sakura? Sakura slammed her fists down on the table and grit her teeth, trying to keep from doing something that would result in Kushina tearing her head off. What do you mean? Naruto frowned and elaborated. She shows no interest in training, knows nothing more than the academy jutsu and tree walking, and lacks any sort of drive save for trying to get Sasuke to notice her. Sakura made to stand up but froze when Kushina cracked her knuckles. How do any of these reasons make you believe she's ready? Often nail meat hammer. Tenten sneered, she hated fangirls that posed as kunoichi. Made a mockery of everything she sought to prove. Kakashi gave a slight frown at both the harsh reasoning and the truth in them. You should have a bit more faith in your team, Naruto. Give him a reason. Chrysalis smirked. Why? Since when have they ever shown faith in me or ever valued my opinion? Admitted sensei, they don't like me and would rather leave me to the wolves than risk their lives for me. The transformed equestrian girls all gasped, horrified. Rainbow Dash, who was the most loyal of the group, had to be held back to keep from attacking Sakura outright, furious. What about when Sasuke stopped those senbon from hitting you back in Nami? Okay, so this Sasuke guy isn't so bad, then. Fluttershy said. Naruto snorted, and church hymns that praise God are sung in hell. Fluttershy winced. The blonde scoffed and retorted, I'm willing to bet my chances of becoming Hokage that he did that to put himself in a position to acquire his Sharingan. He got them on the mission, right sensei? He probably risked his life for me just so that he could get them. Applejack pulled her hat over her head, muttering words that ponies weren't even supposed to know, much less use, to describe Naruto's so-called teammates. Try as he might, the Jonin couldn't find any argument against his student's reasoning. His uncovered eye looked into Naruto's blue orbs and saw nothing more than distrust and a small level of anger. Well, he does have the right. Luna said with a wince. Look, Naruto, I know that you have more than enough reasons to doubt anyone ever helping you. No kidding on that one, I had to learn to be utterly self-reliant in everything since day one. How or why could I realistically learn to genuinely trust anybody to have my back? Naruto growled. Kakashi suddenly felt glad he wore a mask as he cringed, recalling the first bell test he'd put Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura through, wincing at how he'd reprimanded Naruto for trying to do everything himself, even threatening to drop him from the shinobi program entirely for it. Now that it was pointed out like that, how on earth did he honestly expect a boy who had been ostracized by his own village all his life for simply being alive to just grasp the concept of teamwork at the drop of a hat like that? Naruto never had anyone really looking out for him for most of his life, especially not his classmates. It made no sense for Kakashi to reasonably expect Naruto to rely on people who had never been there for him to help him when he needed it. But, can't you at least try to give them a chance? You'll need to rely on each other for these exams. Oh, that'll work really well. Rainbow Dash muttered sarcastically. Turning back to his bowl, the genin replied, I won't promise you that I'll put my faith in them, but I'll tolerate taking this stupid test with them. That's all I ask of you, Naruto. All he can ask, more like it. The changeling queen cackled. Stated the Jonin as he placed enough money on the counter for the 4 bowls of ramen they both consumed as a whole. He then placed the sign-up form on the counter and left the stand. A.M., who had been eavesdropping on their conversation, asked her surrogate little brother. Surrogate family. Thank God. Minato, Kushina and the pony girls all sighed. Do you think your team will pass, Naruto? Nope. Pinky said, surprising everyone. Since when did she sound negative? Sasuke and Sakura had to be even worse than they thought. He sighed with a slight sag of his shoulders and answered, it's hard to say. If my guess for what will happen is right, then Sasuke will declare himself as team leader, while Sakura will agree to anything he decides. Since I need them to take these exams, I'll just have to deal with it. Ah, the bond between a jerk and his lapdog. Chrysalis sighed dramatically. Sakura grit her teeth. A lapdog. She was not Sasuke's lapdog. Her thoughts must have shown on her face, because Anko snickered, just keep telling yourself that, Haruno just keep telling yourself that. The ramen chef placed a comforting hand on top of his and gently squeezed it. I'm sure you'll do fine. Tusan and I believe in you, Naruto. Naruto, his parents and the equestrians all smiled at that. The blonde looked to her with a small smile and nodded. Thanks, Amni. He then stood up and made his way out of the stand. Tell Pops that I said hi for me. He called out as he left. He carefully pulled the hood of his coat over his head. What was the point of doing that? Choji asked. Naruto shrugged, no idea. Ask my other. As he weaved through the crowded streets and made his way to the Hokage Tower. He wanted to talk with the Sandaime and finally ask him a much desired question. Bet it's about us. Kushina said. He made it to the receptionist after battling through the crowds for nearly 5 minutes and she let him in with a small smile. While not overly supportive of him, she was civil with the Uzumaki and treated him like any other person. Appreciate that. Naruto said. Naruto was then led inside the office and entered to the side of the age cage seated behind his desk with stacks of paperwork seated on top. Naruto, what can I do for you? Asked the man with a smile. Seems nice. Celestia said, studying the image of the Sandaime the projector displayed. The blonde took a seat on the chair in front of the desk and looked to the Hokage with a straight face. I have a question for you, old man. Of course. What is it you want to ask me? What is my relationship to Uzumaki Mito and Uzumaki Kushina? You'd better tell him, old man. Talk. Kushina ordered, unable to contain herself. Minato nodded, eyes steely. Their son had a right to know about them, damn it. The old man raised a brow at the unexpected question and took his pipe out of his top desk drawer. What brought this on, Naruto? He asked as he lit his pipe and began to smoke from it. I know it's his office, but should he really be smoking in his workplace? Rarity asked. About 2 years ago, I came across this journal that told me about Mito-sama and Kushina-san. I was curious as to who they were and tried to find some information on them. Unfortunately, I was only able to get info on Mito-sama and couldn't find anything on Kushina-san. What I read about Mito-sama was basically what they told us in the academy. That she was the Shodaime's wife and an Uzumaki. Okay, hold it. If even the basics in the academy covered her maiden surname, how could none of you figure out who he was? Twilight asked, pointing at Naruto. The others on the Konoha side all took a sudden interest in the ceiling. So, you wish to know about Kushina then? Damn right he should know about his own mother, information should have been kept from him in the first place. Tenten muttered. Her words earning the weapon mistress a series of thumbs up and supportive smiles and nods from Celestia, Luna, Twilight, Rainbow Dash, Applejack, Rarity, Fluttershy, Pinkie Pie, Naruto, Minato, and Kushina. Not just that. I want to know what my connection is to them, Gigi. They're Uzumaki, and my last name is Uzumaki. I also found out that there was a clan of Uzumaki. His blue eyes met the brown eyes of the village leader, and he asked, am I from their clan, Gigi, or is me sharing their surname just a coincidence? It isn't. Minato said. Sarutobi, you had better tell him everything. Kushina ordered hotly. They're really getting into this right now, Twilight said nervously, scooting her chair back to put distance between herself and Naruto's parents. That's perfectly understandable, my dear student, the Sun Princess said calmly, they are his parents, after all. By sheer right of that fact, he should have grown up knowing them. They can't help but get worked up because they want their son's alternate to know them and that they care about him. The cage sighed tiredly due to the depth the answer had concerning the genin before him. He set his pipe down and leaned his chin on top of his interlaced hands above his desk. What you must understand before I answer you, Naruto, is that this information is incredibly classified. I need your word that you won't speak of this unless I give you explicit permission. Do you understand? Of course I do. Naruto snapped. Yep, he's their son, all right. Applejack said with a grin at seeing Naruto get as worked up as his mother and father at the words in the book as well as the projected image they were all watching. Nodding, the genin replied, yes, I understand and I give you my word, Gigi. Tell him already. Pinkie Pie said. Very well, then you asked what your connection to them is. The answer is that you share their clan name because you are all of that clan. You're in Uzumaki, plain and simple. Now, Mito-sama was indeed the wife of Hashirama Dono, but she was also a holder of the Kyuubi much like you are. Naruto made a feigned expression of shock at the statement. He already knew that, but he just wanted to hear the man he saw as a grandfather tell him. What of Kushina-san? Should be calling me mother, not my first name, Kushina muttered, damn that masked Uchiha. The elderly Hokage chuckled at him and commented, you have no idea how strange it is to hear you refer to your mother by her name. Wow, could that old-timer have dropped that one any more casually? Rainbow Dash said, shaking her head. Guy needs some tact with something that important. Everyone nodded at her words. Now, the feigned shock became genuine on the blonde's face. What? The old man nodded with a sigh. Yes, she is in actuality your mother. She died during the night the Kyuubi attacked, that's why she isn't here now. He gave the blonde a regretful look and said, I'm so sorry for not telling you this sooner, but I wasn't sure if you were ready to know at the time. Ready? He had the right to know from the beginning. It wasn't your place to decide if he was ready. Kiba snarled, slamming head hands on the table, Akamaru barking in agreement. As an Inuzuka, he found the idea of having someone else decide something like that about if you had the right to know your own family revolting. The blonde's mind was reeling at the news. His mother was the second holder of the fox and died the night he was born. She must have died when the fox somehow broke free. Kushina bit back a sob. It wasn't far from the truth, but she still hated being absent from her son's life. She tensed when someone took her hand and gently squeezed it. Looking down, she saw her baby smiling softly at her, reassuring and supportive. She couldn't help herself at that, even if she wanted to. She wrapped him in a hug. I want to ask Gigi about it, but then he'd grow suspicious as to how I knew Kachan was the previous Jinchuriki, he thought to himself before another thought came to him. What about my father? What happened to him? Minato perked up at that, eager. He perished that night as well as he helped the village keep the fox at bay. I'm sorry, Naruto. The yellow flash grit his teeth. Damn, old man was keeping his son in the dark about him. When they got out of here, he was tracking down the spirit of the Sandaime and clobbering him. I see, he murmured quietly before he looked to the Sandaime anxiously. Did they love me, Gigi? For the record, and I speak for all of us, I'm sure when I say I get it why you're asking that, but what kind of question is that? Twilight said, shouting at the end. Naruto blushed at that. Never knew mom and dad, so sue me, but it had to be asked. Don't you think I would have never needed to ask that question at all because I knew the answer already? The change ponies all nodded at his response, understanding his logic completely. Ino chuckled, it didn't take being a member of her family to see how these equestrian girls' minds all worked. Good for Naruto and his other that they both knew them now, then she got everyone's attention again when she resumed reading. Of course they loved you, Naruto. Damn right, and that can't be stressed enough. Minato said, Kushina nodding firmly. When Kushina was pregnant with you, she was happier than I had ever seen her before. Beaming, Kushina nodded. Your father practically shouted from the Hokage mountain that his wife was pregnant and did so again when they found out that you were a boy. Leonardo ruffled his son's hair as he smiled at that. He really had been that excited. The blonde chuckled at that as he wiped away a stray tear. Thanks for telling me, Gigi. The princesses and main six all smiled at that. At least Naruto could spend time with his parents in this pocket dimension they were all in right now. It was now trouble. Should be no rather than now. Seriously, wasn't this story proofread? Twilight said, shaking her head at the heirs. Oh, lay off, you OCD egghead. Rainbow Dash huffed even as she took bits from her friends. Really don't kill the mood. It was a sweet moment right now. My boy. Now, perhaps you can answer a few questions for me. At the teen's nod, he asked, where exactly did you find that journal and who gave you those clothes you're wearing? Ah yes, the ever-infamous long storyline, Shino said. Now it was the blonde's turn to sigh as he rested his elbows on his knees and waved his hand at the old man. You might as well get comfortable, Gigi. It's kind of a long story. Knew it. The bug user said as everyone chuckled. Time skip. 2 hours. And then I got some new clothes and was sent back to the shrine. After that, I took the scroll and Yuzu Hide and a book on some guy called the Rakuto Sennin before I headed back to the village, finished the Uzumaki as he was now standing from his chair. Stiff muscles? Choji asked. Naruto shrugged. The sandame smoked from his pipe he had resumed using after the first hour and thought over what had been said. Only you, my boy, would be fortunate enough to stumble across your clan's old shrine and find not just Mito-sama's journal, but his summoning contract. The blonde rubbed his head sheepishly at that, making the old man chuckle. So, you have the support of these ponies and passed their test to be their summoner. You also received some new clothes from them. Some very nice new clothes, if I do say so myself. Rarity said proudly, making her friends roll their eyes. You know I wouldn't mind checking out your work and maybe even modeling a few outfits. Ino said, looking up from the book. The purple-haired former unicorn beamed at Ino for that. It was obvious to her that Ino delighted in style, elegance, comfort and beauty as far as her wardrobe went. Just Rarity's own type. Certainly. She agreed. Yay. Still missing an H at the end. Twilight said. Everyone else rolled their eyes. OCD or not, was she going to do this every time there was a small accidental error with the spelling or grammar? Someone stop her, we're running out of bits. Applejack moaned, even as she paid her multicolor-haired friend. They were all really nice and supportive during my test. 2 of them even hugged me when I was beginning to feel down. Naruto smiled at the ponies turned humans, and his parents, feeling touched, did likewise, too grateful for words. The cage smiled at that. Well, I'm glad that you found something to associate you with your old clan more. If you wish, you could also wear their hide to show your connection to them. It's your decision. Naruto bit his lip. His Konoha hide was a badge of pride for him, but one that showed his connection to his family. Was there a way he couldn't win and lose simultaneously with that? The genin nodded and the old man continued, now, you know of your connection to the 2 Uzumaki you read about and know that one of them was your mother. Remember that this information is classified and cannot be repeated to anyone without my permission. However, in the event that I pass on from this world, then the information is yours to handle however you wish. Understand? Naruto and the other Konoha shinobi all winced at that. Yay. Again with the missing H. Twilight shouted, offended and aghast. Ino, think you could do the whole Yamanaka mindwalker bit and rewire her brain so her OCD doesn't have her so tightly wound? We'll never finish if she keeps this up. Shikamaru said to his female teammate in a loud whisper under his breath. Yes, please do, none of us want to end up in debt with Rainbow Dash. Fluttershy said. Ino nodded, I'll try, no idea how successful it'll be with how obsessive-compulsive with things she is, but I'll try. She muttered back, able to see Shikamaru's point about never finishing with Twilight's constant interruptions. And it was only the 2nd chapter. I understand, Gigi, replied the blonde with a bow as he made to leave the office. Before he reached the door, he turned back and said, and as a thanks for helping me, I'll tell you how to deal with your paperwork. Tsunade leaned in, a starved look in her eyes. Damn it, she should have ordered Naruto to tell her this a long time ago. He nearly busted up laughing at the near childish look of eager of the old man's face. Try using Cage Bunshin to get it done faster, Gigi, he suggested as he left. Tsunade gasped, going pale. Cage Bunshin, was it really that simple, that obvious? She sighed and her eyes rolled back in her head as she fainted from shock. For the next 10 minutes after Naruto left, the receptionist heard a continuous banging from the Hokage's office, followed by consecutive shouts of, stupid. Rainbow Dash burst out laughing, then once she got control of herself again, she wiped a tear from her eye and grinned at Naruto. Okay, Blondie, you and me will get along, you just fine. She said. Academy, the next day. Naruto was leaning against a tree in front of the academy as he waited for his teammates. "He really shouldn't call them that, you know," Luna said to her older sister. Sakura scowled. She was being judged by a bunch of hay-breathe glue ingredients as a bad person, all because some other version of Naruto, the happy-go-lucky moron, had issues. What was worse was that if she vented on Naruto for causing her to look bad, his dead parents would skin her alive. The show up. It was the day of the Chunin exams, and the blonde still couldn't keep the look of annoyance off of his face as he thought of how his sensei gave him, and possibly the other two, the sign-up forms the day before the exams. Should have told them sooner. More time to prepare and make up their minds. Celestial abolished. Kakashi chuckled sheepishly. He honestly hadn't seen anything wrong with what he'd done at the time. "I wonder if Pinky would mind helping me prank him for that," he internally mused. "Would, and gladly at that," Pinky announced, making Kakashi gulp. Before he noticed his Uchiha teammate walking up followed closely by his civilian-raised one. "My parents are shinobi," Sakura said quickly. "Which makes that you're nothing but a third wheel, a damsel in distress, a joker in the deck, and a desk drone, all because of how boy crazy you are more pathetic. They would have been able to help prepare you for the way things went out in the field and in the real world if you hadn't blocked them out in favor of fantasizing about Sasuke's butt." Tenten smirked. "What did you say?" Sakura demanded. "It wasn't like that at all." "Oh? Then tell all of us here, before you face those 3 sound ninja genin in the forest of death, how many fights did you actually play an active role in, rather than just standing there watching from behind or off to the side? How many times did the ones your team faced deem you a worthless deadweight that dragged everyone else down because they left themselves wide open to dangers because they had to focus on protecting you so they didn't bother with targeting you? And wasn't trying to change that why you became Lady Tsunade's apprentice in the first place?" the weapon mistress asked simply. Sakura stiffened, eyes huge and face paling. "Wow, that's not how did you know?" "Of course not. She's completely dead on with everything she just pointed out, isn't she?" Chrysalis snickered. Sakura looked down with gloomy features. Tenten was right on all counts, and the Haruno knew it, but she just felt so self-conscious about it and how her resolve always caved in when things got intense, she couldn't help but get defensive. "Then again you did improve without Sasuke around," the brunette admitted. "Ah, so it wasn't that you were being cruel, you were being blunt and honest. Remove the distraction, she shows she's capable," Celestia said. Tenten nodded. "Sasuke was not and is not a distraction," Sakura snapped. "Okay, back to the book," Kiba muttered. This argument would drag on forever because of Sakura's refusal to admit Sasuke was a roadblock to her own development as a kunoichi. Otherwise, better to let it die now and get back to reading. With a resigned sigh, he pushed himself off of the tree and thought, showtime. "What's with the new clothes, dope?" asked the Uchiha with a smug look. Finally decided to actually try to be competent. "You really had to work with this egotistical jerk?" Rainbow Dash asked Naruto. He nodded cowardly and sanctimonious, too. "Oh, fun," the Saiyan flyer muttered sarcastically, rolling her eyes. Rarity fumed at the crack about the outfit she'd made. Who was this guy to talk? Someone in short shorts, a high collar, and a hairdo that looked like the back end of a chicken or a duck had the sheer gall to ridicule her work. How dare he? The blonde didn't grace him with an answer and just made his way inside. "Good, don't give him the satisfaction," both princess sisters encouraged. This Sasuke person was the complete antithesis of everything the elements of harmony and equestria stood for. If he could get Pinkie Pie to be negative and Rarity to feel murderous, they did want a nice boy like Naruto stained with Sasuke's colors. Sasuke took that as a win, while Sakura was annoyed that the blonde ignored her Sasuke-kun. Other me?" Sakura squeaked at the looks she was sent by everyone else, as if they were trying to decide who among them deserved to hurt her most first and how they'd each do it. "Would actually buy that if you weren't that exact same way yourself," Sai commented in his usual drab tone. Once they went inside and climbed up a flight of stairs, they saw many genin from various villages gathered around a door marked 301. But if they only went up one flight of stairs, Fluttershy asked. "Illusion," Twilight told her friend. "Sheesh, that was obvious, only a simple bit of logic could overcome that. Then again, an exam was made to see how much you knew. If they couldn't figure out something like that, the ones trying to take the test weren't ready." Naruto rolled his eyes at the attempt to deceive the potential test takers and made to walk past the others before he heard Sasuke open his big mouth. "Take down that genjutsu. We're heading for room 301, not 201. Shining Armor's sister moaned. "How is it he's that much of a stupid show-off yet you're seen as the dead last?" she asked Naruto, finding out that hands and fingers were much better at rubbing temples to ward off headaches than hooves were as she did so. "I'm better with practical application in the field, but no good at all with paperwork and test scores," Naruto answered. Naruto slapped a hand to his forehead in frustration and tuned out what had happened next in favor of heading up the stairs to the real room 301. Better that you did. It's obvious those two are unreliable. Applejack muttered. Celestial looked at Kakashi pointedly. How exactly did you find your other two students ready for something like this? If Sasuke caused things to be unnecessarily harder just because he wanted to think he was superior and Sakura mindlessly went along with everything because he was the one who wanted it that way, how exactly are the two of them ready for the next step? Kakashi gulped and urged Ino to keep reading. He leaned on the wall outside the door for over 10 minutes before Kakashi appeared in a shunshin and his teammates walked up. One looking worse for wear. Oh yeah, Ali smacked Sasuke around. Naruto recalled fondly. Well, I'm glad that you all made it here, Kakashi praised. I was worried that I'd have to deny you entry. Naruto narrowed his eyes at the Jonin in annoyance while he explained to the other two what would have happened if all three of them didn't show. Really should have told them sooner and when they were all together. Celestial abolished again. But then Sakura would have gone through with it as soon as Sasuke told her to, not because of her own choice. Luna pointed out. The white transformed alicorn nodded. True enough. With his explanation finished, he wished them luck and left, allowing them to step through the doors and into the examination room. They were instantly glared at by the various genin. That's a lot of hostility. Fluttershy gulped. Making Sakura nervous, Sasuke eager, and Naruto just plain bored. He'd seen worse glares from the villages since their glares were full of hatred. Kushina gave her husband the stink eye while the equestrians all tried to keep feeling sorry for Naruto. He told them he didn't want pity. All the glares the genin gave were of annoyance. Sasuke-kun. Cried a girl as the Uchiha had to suddenly deal with extra weight on his back. Here we go Shikamaru. Sakura grit her teeth. The blonde teen dressed in purple was hugging him from behind, making Sakura grow incredibly irritated. Seeing the looks from the 8 ponies, Ino shrugged, old schoolgirl crush, I'm over it. She explained, then shot a discreet sideways glance at Sai which none of the ninjas noticed, but the transformed ponies did since they were looking at her. They nodded at it. Ino pig, get off of Sasuke-kun. She yelled. Make me, billboard brow. Retorted the blonde as she blew a raspberry like a 5-year-old. Ino groaned, damn it, can't believe I ever acted like this. She slammed her head of the table, feeling humiliated and ashamed of how she used to be. Naruto rolled his eyes at them and just pulled out the book on the Rakuto Sennin and began reading. Twilight nodded. Books were good for that sort of thing. He was still surprised that the Sandaime didn't take it from him, but he wasn't going to complain. He shouldn't have taken it. The lavender-hued girl said firmly. Troublesome, muttered a lazy voice as the blonde Uzumaki gave a sideways glance to Ino's teammate. Here we go, Shikamaru grinned. Nara Shikamaru. Next to the lazy genin was Akamichi Choji, a heavisate genin with a heart as big as his appetite. Choji laughed. So, you're here too, Naruto. The whiskered genin just nodded as he went back to reading his book. Shikamaru was one of the only genin who saw through his idiot facade. Abiram Shino being the other. Naruto looked at the two in question. Then shrugged. Shikamaru and Shino were both damn smart, so it shouldn't have been surprising. Yahoo, we found you. Everyone looked at Kiba, already knowing it was him. Yelled an exuberant teen as he and his teammates approached the rookies of the Leaf. This was Inyazuka Kiba, a boisterous genin from Naruto's graduating class. Flanking him were Hyuga Hinata, a shy but kind-hearted girl. Shy and kind-hearted. Twilight said, then turned to Fluttershy. I can see why he'd compare the two of you in the last chapter. Hinata and Fluttershy both blushed. And Shino, a silent but intelligent teen. Shino nodded. Quiet down, admonished a new voice, making Naruto turn his gaze away from his book and see a silver-haired Konoha genin wearing purple clothes and some glasses. The Buto lousy spy, Naruto fumed. You're making a scene and basically putting a target on your backs. Isn't that what Sasuke wants to happen anyways? Sai asked. Oh yay. We know. The missing H at the end. Twilight's friend said when she opened her mouth as they paid Rainbow Dash again. Who asked you? Retorted the Inyazuka with a bark of support from his canine partner, Akamaru. The genin sighed as he introduced himself. My name is Yakushi Kabuto, and you can call me your go-to guy for these exams. I've taken them at least 7 times and failed each time. So you should have an idea of their difficulty. At the mention of how hard the test was, Twilight suddenly got excited. A test that hard. Sounded fun to her. Hinata poked her fingers together nervously. Do you think that it was a good idea to sign up F for these if there should be THIER, not the one like a location? Everyone groaned. How did you make Twilight sparkle stop? That'd difficult. Even got your stutter. Kiba said, then grinned at his Hyuga teammate. Kabuto smirked and pulled out what looked like playing cards. Tell you what. Since you guys are obviously rookies, I'll help you out. These cards have information on any genin here. Should be her. Twilight said. Luna looked to her sister. This is all on you. You know that, right? She asked. Interested in as well as info as to which villages are taking these exams. What villages are having genin take the exams? Questioned Naruto, making the others turn to him. Most were wondering what was up with the new clothes, while Hinata blushed at his more professional look. Ooh oh, said the crowd of readers, followed by a fair amount of snickering. Hinata looked mortified. Kabuto pulled out a card and had his chakra reveal its contents, showing the rookies the ratio of participating genin between the villages. Well, it appears that Suna, Kumo, Kiri, Kusa, Aim, and a new village called Odo have genin participating with the Konoha genin. Of course, I doubt Odo will do all that well since they're still new and practically unheard of. I hate Odo. Anko muttered, loathing the village that had come to be due to the ambitions of her former mentor. Naruto, Shino, Sai, Chimjai, Sakura, Hinata, Kiba and Akamaru, Lee, Shikamaru, Tenten, Ino, Gai, Kurenai, Kakashi, and Tsunade all agreeing. Behind them in the crown of waiting genin was an Odo team with slight scowls on their faces for being brushed off so easily. Naruto felt a small tingle on the back of his mind and looked to the crowd with narrowed eyes. He couldn't help but feel as if something bad was going to come from it. Sasuke then stepped up and had Kabuto give him information on Rock Lee of Konoha and a Suna genin named Subaku no Gara. The veteran genin pulled out 2 cards and had their contents show themselves. Okay, first is Rock Lee of Konoha. He's a student of Mido Gai, while his teammates are Hyuga Niji and Higurashi Tenten. He lacks any noteworthy skills other than a highly extensive level of Taijutsu. It's not that surprising actually since his teacher is the best Taijutsu using jonin of the village. Lee started ranting about how great Guy was, resulting in Guy starting about how touched he was to have Lee as a student before their heads suddenly were surrounded by a green glow and they found themselves with Trismus as well as being rendered mute. That was annoying, Chrysalis muttered. Thank you. Tenten cried, bowing deeply to the ruler of the changelings. Finally. The youth-obsessed freaks were shut up. Next is Subaku no Gara of Suna. He's a student of a jonin named Baki, while his teammates are Subaku no Tamari and Subaku no Kankuro, his older siblings. His skills are unknown, but the one thing that makes him stand out is that he has returned from every mission his team has taken unscathed. Is that good? The Chunin exams were the first time he'd ever gotten a blow landed on him. Thought the guys from Suna were gonna have heart attacks when that happened. Naruto recalled, amused. Naruto perked up at that and looked to the picture of the Suna genin before he searched the room for him. When he found him and the 2 locked eyes, Naruto felt another tug on the back of his mind that reeked of negativity. This guy he's definitely not one to take lightly or piss off. Especially with how he was back then, Shino said with a shudder. He mentally noted before he heard quick movement and saw the Odo team try to get Kabuto. The blonde saw the veteran genin dodge with ease before his glasses cracked and he fell to his knees, releasing the contents of his stomach in the process. What happened? Applejack gasped. Damn sound-based attacks. Oh, Twilight said, realizing what had happened. Keep reading before she breaks out a PowerPoint explanation. Rainbow Dash said, causing Twilight to huff. Fitting since their village is named Sound. The next thing that happened was a large plume of smoke appearing at the head of the room near the board. From it came a man dressed in black clothing and many Chunin dressed in tan Konoha uniforms. Alright you little shits. Such language, Celestia gasped. My name is Marino Ibiki and I will be your first examiner. Yelled out the man in black. You 3 of Odo, this is your only warning. No fighting amongst the genin unless we tell you it's permitted. Wait, they're allowed to fight. What kind of test is this? Twilight said. The Odo genin dressed like a mummy gave a look that hardly seemed apologetic. Sorry about that. We're just dealing with last-minute jitters. Bull. Naruto muttered. Ibiki grunted in annoyance before he had the genin all take a number and take their designated seats. Naruto found himself seated in the center row next to the retied Suna genin. Everyone paled. Swell, he mentally thought sarcastically. Alright maggots, the first exam is a written test. Many students groaned at that while Sasuke and Sakura glared in Naruto's direction. Like I said before, I'm better with practical application in the field, but no good at all with paperwork and test scores. Naruto shrugged. Said blonde mentally sighed at the lack of faith from his teammates. Had none of that to begin with. Chrysalis said. Now, these are the rules for this exam. Each genin team passes and fails as a whole, each genin has 10 points at the start and a genin will be sent out of the room if caught cheating 3 times along with their teammates. There are 9 questions on the paper, while the 10th and final will be brought up afterwards. Each wrong answer will have you lose 1 of your 10 points and the final score will be the accumulative of your score and the scores of your teammates. The test in how well you can cheat without getting caught. Twilight paled, instantly understanding the rules. This was wrong. Just plain sick, twisted and wrong. Any questions? One genin raised a hand only to have a kunai embed itself on the desk he sat in. Well, that's too damn bad. No questions. Period. Then why ask as there were any? Pinky asked. Ibiki's an interrogator, always been like that because of his job. Seeped into his character after a while. Anko supplied. These are the rules and they will be followed as they are. Now, pick up your pencils and begin. Almost all of the genin picked up their pencils immediately. Naruto gave Gaara a sideways glance and saw that the Redeed hadn't even budged. He just sat there with his eyes closed as if he was a statue. Why's that? Rarity asked. Who cares? He's not hurting anyone right now, best leave him that way. Applejack said. The blonde shook his head and focused on his paper. Within a span of 2 minutes, he frowned at the inability to answer any of the questions. These questions could stump even Jonin. How the hell does he expect us to, he thought before what Ibiki said smacked him in the face. Wait a minute, he said that we would be sent out after being caught 3 times. That gives us 2 freebies before we get the boot. Could it really be so simple? Twilight shuddered, horrified. Deciding to go with his gut, he glanced around the room and saw someone seated in the row in front of him with a test paper that was over halfway filled. Going out on a limb, he took out a smoke bomb from his ninja pouch and held it in his right fist. He casually had it roll off of his desk and near his target before he made a hidden hand seal and had the bomb detonate. Smoke filled the room and he quickly swapped papers with his target before he made a face of faint confusion. Naruto. How could you? Twilight demanded. She knew the point was to cheat, but that didn't mean she approved of what he'd just done. Me. Naruto said. He'd left his test blank and hinged everything on the 10th question. Ibiki, having seen through it all, merely smirked at the blonde's plan and did nothing. It was gutsy, risky, and stupid. But it was also the correct way to go about the test. Twilight puffed out her cheeks and swallowed her own vomit at that. Not bad, Uzumaki, not bad at all. Many of the other genin were soon discovering what the blonde Uzumaki had and began to use their respective skills to get the answers. Twilight stuck her fingers in her ears, she couldn't stand having to hear this. Rainbow Dash, however, had taken out a pad of paper and took notes on the methods to cheat. She never was one for egghead stuff as she deemed it and was more of a doer. Now that she thought about it, Blondie here was the same as her. The thought made her grin. Those with Dojutsu used them to copy the movements of other test takers or see the answers they needed. Those who were book smart, like Sakura and Shikamaru, had no real issue putting down a few answers. Kiba and Shino used their respective animal companions to help them find the answers. Ino waited for Sakura to finish her test before she used her clan's jutsu to invade her mind and body. She then memorized the answers and returned to her own body before entering Choji's and writing the answers for him. Tenten helped out Lee with the use of wires and mirrors hanging on the ceiling to look at the reflections of test papers. The Odo genin used chakra to enhance their hearing and follow the flow of writing from other test takers on sound alone. Kankuro feigned having a need to use the restroom and had a Chunin take him. Ibiki easily saw that the Chunin was in actuality the Suna genin's puppet, but he kept quiet. Tamari patiently waited for her brother to return with the answers written on a small scroll as they planned using gestures. As for Gaara, he used sand to make a third eye that flew through the room and gazed at the answers for Gaara to write down. When Kankuro returned, Ibiki called out, "Alright, pencils down. They're finished with the part you hate," Rarity said, pulling Twilight's hands from her ears. Twilight sighed. That was good. The genin all complied before he continued, "Okay, the final question has an extra rule." This was met with much complaining and yells before he silenced them all with a burst of killing intent. It's his job to be this way. Anko reminded before the ponies could start complaining. Shut your damn mouths. I'm in charge here, so I make the rules. Now, the extra rule is in truth a choice. You choose whether or not you take the question or not. Huh? The equestrians all asked at once. Why wouldn't we take it? Scoffed Akiri genin making Ibiki give a cruel smirk. Well, if you take it and fail then you basically give up ever becoming a Chunin for your entire career. Chrysalis grinned. She liked how this guy worked. Say what? Yelled Iname Kinoichi. That's fucked up, you bastard. Cried Kiba with Akamaru barking in agreement. Kiba gagged as Twilight conjured a bar of soap and jammed in his mouth. The other genin voiced their disapproval with the extra rule before the man shut them up again. Listen, your village leaders all know of this rule and have agreed to it. Chrysalis snickered. She was loving this. So, your choice is now in front of you. Those who do not wish to take the question, leave now and take your teammates with you. Within the span of 5 minutes, over half of the teams taking the test left the room. Wimps. Rainbow Dash booed. They had looks of regret and worry on their faces, making Naruto grow concerned about his chances. He looked to his teammates and saw Sasuke giving a facade of calm that was easily noticeable while Sakura looked incredibly nervous. Her green eyes locked with his blue ones and he slowly shook his head, making her look at him as if he were insane. Naruto shook his head. He ignored that look as he faced the front again. "So, still a few of you left, huh?" asked Ibiki rhetorically. "Well, not much left to do now except pass you." "Say what?" the equestrians all shouted again. The silence of the test takers reigned over the room, making the examiner and various Chunin smirk. Finally, it was broken by Kiba standing from his seat and pointing at Ibiki accusingly. "What the fuck, man? You scare the crap out of us and make us choose to take the test only to just pass us." "That's correct, brat," answered the bear of a man. There was no real 10th question. It was merely to test you psychologically and see if you had the mentality to put aside everything for the sake of the mission. There will be times when you take a mission with incredibly high risks and you're given the choice to go through with it or not. Showing that you're willing to do it proves that you have the mentality of a Chunin who is willing to face the risks, he stated as he removed his bandana, showing his burned and scarred head, even if the risks scar you. "A psychological test," Twilight said, looking like her brain had short-circuited. Damari raised her hand and asked, "Then what was the point of the other 9 questions?" "Do tell," Celestia urged. Ibiki chuckled at her, making her growl in annoyance. "The point was to test you all on your skills in information gathering. A common mission Chunin will be assigned. You see, my testing methods were not wasted in the slightest on you genin and you all prevailed. So, you all passed the first exam." "Oh, I get it now," Twilight said, looking like she'd just gotten back to normal from her brain being fried. As soon as he finished, a black bundle crashed into the room and burst open. Kunai stabbed the corners of the opened cloth to the walls and allowed the genin to read the banner it was revealed to be. Anko grinned proudly. The second examiner. The sexy and single Mitarashi Anko. Read the banner while a woman with purple hair stood in front of it. She had her hair styled in a fan-like ponytail, had brown pupil-less eyes, and a killer body. She wore blue shinobi sandals, an orange skirt that fell just above her knees, a mesh armor shirt, and a tan trench coat over it all. Pinkie Pie held up a scorecard with a 7.5 on it. "Hey." Anko demanded, slamming a fist on the table and glaring at the pink space, "Only a 7.5. What the hell's with the low score? Needed more passes, bigger, louder, wilder, more attention-grabbing and unforgettable. And the window. Considering everything you can do, you could have done way more as far as being original." Pinkie Pie stated as if it were obvious. "Back. Oh damn it all." Anko gripped, smacking a hand to her forehead and furiously tousling her hair with her hands, looking furious with herself. "Oh my god, there's 2 of them." Rainbow Dash said, going bug-eyed in sheer horror at the scene. Someone that was rigged to think just like Pinkie Pie, this was gonna be a nightmare. "Alright you little brats, this isn't time to celebrate," exclaimed the woman before she pointed out the window she broke through. "The second exam begins now, so follow me." Almost all of the genin looked to her like she was crazy, while some stayed quiet. "Bet she gets that a lot," Luna whispered to Celestia. Naruto couldn't help but think that Pinkie Pie would enjoy this kind of entrance and made a mental note to tell her about it later. "I do like it, but like I said, could do better," Pinkie admitted. Ibiki poked his head out from behind the banner and muttered, "You're early again." "Better early than late," Naruto said, smirking at Kakashi along with the other Konoha ninjas in the reading group. Kakashi winced. That was a low blow. She turned her gaze from the window and glared at him before she looked at the clock. Her glare turned into a sheepish grin when she saw that he was right and she rubbed her head in embarrassment. "Whoops. I thought I was on time." "There's a neat little invention called a watch." Applejack snickered. "I wear one," Anko informed. "Let it go guys, if she's like Pinkie Pie, you know how she'd be about keeping track of time," Naruto said. The others looked at Anko and Pinkie before nodding. Ibiki sighed in slight annoyance while Naruto and a few others chuckled. "At any rate, you have your work cut out for you, Anko. These genin are tougher than they look." "Is that so?" asked the woman with a growing grin. "Well, I guarantee that this number will be cut in half by the time they're done with my test." Yet there were still enough to warrant a preliminary round for the third part of the exam. Sakura muttered. Anko turned to Sakura. "What was that, Pink?" she asked pleasantly with a too friendly look on her face. Sakura paled and the other Konoha shinobi edged away from her. "Now, hurry up and follow me, you little brats," she exclaimed as she jumped out of the window with the genin quickly following her. They all traveled to training ground 44 where many other Chunin and even 2 Anbu were waiting for them. One of the Chunin walked up to Anko and said, "Mitarashi-san, we are ready when you are." "What are they gonna do there?" Applejack said, but her attention was mostly fixed on the size of the trees. "Man. If she could get the trees in her orchard that big." "Glad to hear it," she replied before she turned to the genin. This is Training Ground 44, otherwise known as the Forest of Death. Forest of what? Celestia asked. It is here where your second exam will take place. Chrysalis smirked. She was loving these tests and how the reactions freaked the main six and their precious princesses out so much. And what exactly is the second exam? Asked a named Genin. The Takubetsu Jonin smirked at the question. You can think of this little test as a beefed up game of capture the flag. Oh, that doesn't sound so bad. Fluttershy said. Not right now, Chrysalis purred deviously. Each of your teams will get either an Earth Scroll or a Heaven Scroll to guard. Your objective is to get the scroll you do not have and bring both to the central tower in the forest before 5 days pass or 120 hours. If any of your teammates if left behind in the forest or dies. Dies? The ponies cried out while Chrysalis hooted with laughter at how they all looked ready to faint in horror at that. It's called the Forest of Death for a reason. The shapeshifter cackled. You will be disqualified. And if you open any of the scrolls before you bring them both to the tower, you will be disqualified. Understand? Many of the Genin nodded and were then given waivers to sign so the leaf wouldn't be responsible for their deaths. I am loving this, I really am. Wish I had a camera. Chrysalis said, looking at her human-formed enemies. She noticed that the shinobi were all shaking their heads, but she guessed it was because of how lovey-dovey Equestria was making the main six and the Sun and Moon sisters so unprepared for something like this. Once a team had all of their members sign a waiver, then they were given a scroll. Naruto's team was given an Earth Scroll to hold on to. Something Sasuke declared he would do. Sakura was quick to agree while Naruto just stayed quiet so that he wouldn't have to deal with them getting mad at him. Horrible teammates. Rarity huffed. While waiting for the other teams to get their scrolls, Naruto moved out of sight and went through a few hand seals before he bit his right thumb and slammed his palm on the ground. Kuchius no jutsu, he muttered quietly so that he wouldn't be heard. From the smoke came Rainbow Dash, who looked confused as to why she was there. So I'm up first, eh, Blondie? The Pegasus girl said with a grin. Good choice. Hey. Her friends all shouted. Hey Naruto, what's up? Asked the Pegasus. Hey Dash. I need your help for this part of my exam. What exam? We're in the middle of the second test of the Chunin exams and we're being sent into this forest. I need you to go inside and wait for me to enter with my team. When we do, I need you to tail us and watch our backs. Think you can do that? PPPHH, easy. The flight-loving girl said. She smirked and spread her wings out fully. Not a problem, Blondie. Just leave it to me. She exclaimed before she entered the forest in a blue blur. Luckily for Naruto and Dash, none of the Chunin noticed, which allowed her to wait for Naruto and his team to enter without an issue. As if they could spot me with how fast I am. Rainbow Dash said boastfully. Alright, now that everyone has their scrolls, let me give you all one last piece of advice. Exclaimed Enko, getting the attention of the Genin. Don't go dying on me because I don't want to waste my time looking for your carcasses. Now, move your asses. Test 2 has now begun. Here we go, Naruto said, eager to see how things would develop in the book's reality compared to his own. The gates to the forest all opened and the Genin raced inside to begin their test. Dash grinned at the thought of getting to fight alongside her summoner and quickly began following him and his team. Said summoner discreetly looked back and winked at Dash before Harry focused on the path ahead. Let the games begin. Looking forward to it. Rainbow Dash said. In that case, you read the next chapter. Ino said, passing her the book. Chapter 3. As Rainbow Dash was about to start reading, the whole reality of the dimension everyone was caught in started to ripple like disturbed water. Then the transformed mares all cried out, holding their heads in sudden pain, before a rip in space appeared and a new pony suddenly fell out of it into the room as everything stabilized and the transformed Equestria girl's headaches all suddenly stopped. The new pony had a light amber coat, a red and brilliant yellow mane and tail, and a cutie mark of a red and yellow shimmering sun. As the others watched, she turned into a human with blue jeans, a turquoise top that matched her eyes, a black leather jacket, and matching black cowgirl boots. Sunset Shimmer. The main six and Celestia all cried in surprise. You guys. The new girl shouted happily as she jerked up and saw everyone looking at her, then, much to everyone's surprise, especially Princess Celestia, Sunset Shimmer jumped to her feet, then ran up and hugged Twilight Sparkle, Pinkie Pie, Fluttershy, Applejack, Rainbow Dash, and Rarity, looking relieved to see them all. You're all okay. Thank Harmony. She said happily, looking about ready to cry, I was so worried about you all. Then she looked around critically, noticing the shinobi as well as Chrysalis and the room they were all in. Banishment spell mixed with the energy of a space-time transportation to create an pocket reality, correct? She asked, looking around. Everyone nodded. Well, that explains why my transport spell to bring you guys back didn't work. It even worked in reverse and brought me to where you were rather than the other way around. Sunset hummed, looking thoughtful, then she started drawing in the air, something that couldn't be seen, causing everyone to give the new pony girl curious looks as she continued to do some kind of calculation with the air before she nodded to herself and then summoned her magic and grunted in effort before a flash of yellow light filled the room, originating from the new pony turned human, and when it faded, the room the reading group was in had changed slightly. Set about 50 feet apart, each guest room door was rough-hewn oak bound in iron. In the center of each door, a plate-size iron circle was inscribed with a name, and under the names were symbols, cutie marks for those from Equestria, and those from Konoha had the symbol of their clans on the doors for them. There was also a new room that was the size of a concert arena. One look at it and everyone knew it was a mess hall. Sunset nodded in satisfaction before she stumbled as her legs gave out, she would have hit her head on the floor, but Naruto jumped up out of his seat and over to her, catching her, helping her lean on him for support before taking her over to the reading table. "I think it worked," Sunset said groggily. "If we're stuck here for who knows how long, we'll need some living commodities, just extra rooms for us all to stay in and a place to eat. Since this artificial space was made by mixed energies, figured those energies could be tweaked a bit to provide those things until we get out of here," she explained. Sunset Shimmer. "Do you have any idea how risky that was?" Celestia abolished, looking worried. Sunset nodded. "Can't do that again, need a quick rest," she said, leaning more heavily against Naruto, making Hinata grind her teeth together. "Well, the chair between mom and dad is free now, you take it. Need it more than I do," Naruto said, half carrying, half dragging Sunset Shimmer over to the table. "I have a better idea, you stay there," Sunset said, then grinned and pushed Naruto into the seat before she caught herself on the backrest of the chair he was now in and lowered herself to where she sat down right in Naruto's lap. Hinata fainted, muttering something about murder and producing glue. Sunset started shifting around in Naruto's lap, occasionally giving a small bounce. "Can you please stop squirming?" Naruto begged, going redder and redder. "Just getting comfortable," Sunset said coyly, despite her exhaustion. Kushina, looking like she was trying extremely hard not to crack up, smirked, while Hinata, still unconscious, looked like she was going to have a heart attack. "Sunset Shimmer, huh?" Kushina asked, grinning. "Well, as Naruto's mother, I hope to see your alternate in the book sometime soon." "Huh?" Sunset asked. Kushina explained about the book and its tying into getting them out of this false dimension. After she finished, Sunset looked a bit more interested. "That does sound nice, but even if the other version of me doesn't get with your son's other, I'll still have the genuine version, so either way, I win," Sunset said, amused. Chapter 3. Examination. Point 2, Forest of Death. Team 7 leaped through the trees of the infamous Forest of Death as soon as the second exam started. Unknown to two of its members, a certain Pegasus was right behind them keeping an eye on her blonde summoner. Rainbow Dash paused in her reading and grinned, looking smug. Rainbow Dash could easily feel the hostility between the members of the team. Kakashi winced and Sakura gulped as Kushina cracked her knuckles. The mares all winced. Poor other Naruto, having to deal with that. Naruto couldn't tolerate them because they belittled him all of the time. "Jerks," Twilight muttered, giving Sakura an ugly glare. And they couldn't tolerate Naruto for being weaker than they were. "And yet you were the babysitter. I pity you, I truly do, darling," Sunset said, making Naruto gulp. "What did you call him?" Hinata shouted furiously, her anger acting like a shot of adrenaline and waking her up as she glared at the new mare girl. Sunset gave a somewhat tired smile at the heiress. "Why's that bug you? If you like him and were actually serious, you would have made a move a long time ago." Hinata had to have Tsunade hold her back at that. The Pegasus shook her head with pity for her summoner. Clearly he got the short end of the stick in terms of teammates. "Short end of a toothpick, more like it," Sunset pointed out, getting Sakura to fume as the mares all nodded. "And all because he's a Jinchuriki and hated by his fellow villagers, it's not fair," she mentally fumed. "Unfair is the base aspect of a Jinchuriki's life," Naruto muttered, shooting Sunset an annoyed look. He couldn't really do much with her in his lap, he understood she was worn out, but at least give him room to hold his parents' hands for crying out loud. She couldn't understand why he didn't seem to care about the hatred towards him. "I can't stand that he got so used to it that he can block out that much hate." Celestia shuddered. It was wrong, plain wrong. If she was in his shoes, she'd have most likely lashed out and gave into her frustration a long time ago. But then again, that wouldn't be the best way to go about it, she thought with a sigh. Truly, her summoner had a will of iron to have held out for so long. "No kidding." Applejack nodded along with Rainbow Dash's other at that. "We need to stop," Naruto called out suddenly. "Why dope?" asked Sasuke in annoyance. He didn't like having Naruto try and tell him what to do, especially when the blonde was just a no-name loser. No-name. Kushina fumed, where had Sasuke gotten such an ego? He was nothing like his mother. And to think she'd actually hoped that Makoto's sons would be friends with Naruto. I have some business to take care of, was the blonde's answer. Business? We're in a forest, you baka. What kind of business could you possibly need to take care of? Please tell me this level of stupidity isn't contagious, Kiba said. What do you think? The dog boy snapped. Well, excuse me. I'm not an expert as mistaking trees for toilets the way you and your family are. The Haruno snapped back scathingly. What did you say? Kiba roared, slamming his hands down on the table, standing up and glaring with a snarl on his face, while Akamaru barked angrily, both glaring at the Haruno. The Uzumaki rolled his eyes in annoyance and answered in a tone that would seem like he was speaking to a naive child. I need to take a leak, Sakura. What other business could I be talking about? Sakura blushed at his answer before she growled at him in anger. Gross. You don't just say that to a lady, you disgusting pig. Disgusting, all he was doing was answering your stupid question. Rainbow Dash snapped, you have no right to say anything criticizing about him if he was just answering you. Not his fault you're so obsessed with mindlessly slobbering over a brooding sleazeball's butt so much you don't have room for anything else in that shriveled up cherry pit you call a brain. Scowling, she started reading again. Dash really didn't like how Sakura was talking the blonde. Even she could tell what he meant and the pink cat was seriously overreacting. How does Naruto put up with her? Would you be surprised if the answer was no choice? Twilight said. The mares and even Chrysalis all muttered that it wouldn't shock them at all as they glared at the pink-haired girl. Sakura squirmed like a maggot in her seat. Why was her other making her look so bad? Just hurry up, dope, Sasuke ordered as they dropped to the forest floor and the blonde walked into the foliage. As soon as he was gone, Sasuke leaped back into the trees with Sakura quickly following him. Ash glared at them from her position and muttered, jerks. Understatement. Anko said. Before she followed after her summoner. She didn't have to go far and found him seated near a small pond, watching the small fish swimming in the water. They just ditched you, Blondie, she informed him. I knew they would. Sakura gulped at the look on Minato and Kushina's faces. Which is why I made up that excuse to leave them. A good call. Rainbow Dash commented to Naruto, pausing in her reading. He replied while patting the ground next to him. Dash knew what he meant and sat down next to him. So, care to tell me about yourself? What's this about? Twilight asked. Where did that come from? Asked the Pegasus in amusement. He shrugged and replied, I just thought that we could get to know one another since you and the others are my new partners. Good idea. Luna said. If you don't want to talk, that's fine too. Glad he's respectful. Celesta commented. Nah, I don't mind Blondie. So, how did you want to do this? Just tell me your name, likes, dislikes, and dream for the future. Rainbow Dash rolled her eyes. He already knew her name. Still, other than that, her harmony element and that she was a winged pony, he didn't know much else, so she could understand that he'd want to fix that. She nodded at that and began. The name's Rainbow Dash. I like flying. Understatement. Applejack said. I'm a Pegasus, so sue me. It's my nature. Rainbow Dash glared. Fixing the weather in Ponyville. Unless you sleep late. Twilight teased. Rainbow Dash huffed at that. My friends. That one is very true. Fluttershy smiled. And doing stuff that's cool. Sounds like you. Pinky chirped. I dislike boring things, jerks. So you hate Sasuke and Sakura. Kiba said, still glaring at the girl. Those who abuse their power. Sasuke. Shino drawled. And those who mistreat others. Again, Sasuke and Sakura. Shikamaru said. My goal is to meet some pony special and start a family. Rainbow Dash lowered the book and blushed as her friends all looked at her. What? She demanded. It's not something that hasn't crossed everybody's mind at one point or another, right? They all nodded and Rainbow got back to the book. That's a nice dream, Dash. I'm sure you'll meet somebody who means a lot to you, the Uzumaki said sincerely, earning a grateful look from the Pegasus. Whoever said nice guys finish last never met your boy, I can say that in all honesty. Applejack told Minato and Kushina. Naruto's parents beamed at that. Thanks Blondie, your turn now. It'll just be a repeat of what he told us when we went through team intros. Sakura said dismissively, expecting a ramen-obsessed Hokage wannabe. Do you even know how to just shut up? Nobody wants to hear you speak. Tenten snapped. Seriously, if Sakura said another word, the weapon-using girl was going to unseal a hook sword and tear out Sakura's tongue with it. Okay, my name is Uzumaki Naruto. I like to read. Hearing how the other Naruto's answers were different, Sakura looked stunned. Twilight, hearing Naruto enjoyed books, nodded to him as he tried to see more from by resting his head on Sunset's shoulder to avoid seeing just the back of her head. Study Fuinjutsu. Kushina smirked proudly, he got that from her side of the family, after all literally, since he did it from studying Mito-sama's notes on the subject. The rare few people who care about me. Everyone but Naruto himself winced and tried not to look at him with pity at that, they knew he didn't accept that. And finally you and the others for helping me. The mayors, all except Sunset, whose other self hadn't been introduced yet, all awed at that and looked at Naruto, feeling warm inside as they smiled gratefully at him. I dislike those who see me as the fox. Kushina scowled at her husband, while Minato looked both ashamed and nervous at the look on his wife's face at that. Those who hurt my precious people. Who wouldn't? Tenten asked, getting nods all around as everyone agreed with that. Being unable to stand up for myself. Sakura gulped as the others reading all glared at her, daring her to say anything. Rapists. So he hates good. All the females shouted with furious approval at that particular part of Naruto's dislike list. And perverts. Bit of an irony Minato and Kushina both thought, oh when their son's other self met Jiraiya. My dream for the future he stopped, making Dash look to him in concern. It was to be Hokage. Was? Everyone from Konoha said, shocked. Are you sure you read that right? Choji asked. Rainbow Dash nodded that's what it says. But there's an explanation here. She said. But I know it won't ever happen. Like hell I'd give up on my goal Naruto muttered, then let out a gah. And turned his head as Sunset Shimmer nuzzled her cheek against his. Hinata, seeing that, looked ready to explode bad enough for there to be a mushroom cloud. Kushina smiled, she liked how Sunset Shimmer was making it so obviously forward she was enjoying being close to Naruto. He was like Minato sometimes, good with being a ninja, but getting him to tune in on a girl's feelings on his own hopeless. Now, my dream is just to find a place where people accept me and I can live in peace. I can't say that's asking too much. But I wonder where it'll be. Celestia commented. Think it'll be Equestria? Pinky asked. At that, everyone looked thoughtful. Could be. Then looking at the next sentence, Rainbow Dash held out her hand in the pay-up gesture. Her friends groaned, knowing why she was doing that. Ash looked to him sadly and was about to speak before they bother. Brother? Twilight asked. Where did that come from? Felt the ground rumble. Oh what in the heck? How could anybody put the word brother in place of the word both? Twilight ragged. Can you make her stop already? Pinkie Pie begged, paying Rainbow Dash yet again. Twilight's OCD-ness it's a monster that just won't die. Chrysalis cackled just to rub it in how Rainbow Dash was getting rich off a few spelling and grammar errors. Why aren't you paying her? Twilight asked Sunset, scowling. Because I wasn't around when that bet was made. Sunset chirped, grinning, resulting in a chorus of damn to be muttered by 5 of the main 6. And heard a loud hiss. Naruto paled. He knew what was coming. They looked across the pond and their eyes widened in shock as a giant brown snake slithered from the foliage, easily towering over them. Not hers, but I wish it was. Naruto said as everyone gave Anko looks of shock. At that, Anko and Sakura both paled. If the snake wasn't Anko's, that meant. Not good muttered Naruto as he pulled out a kunai and quickly wrapped a seal tag on it. Dash, I need you to help me get to its head. You're gonna fight that thing. Celestia cried in alarm. Well not like running would be a good idea. Turning our backs to a snake that huge. Naruto pointed out. The Sun Princess gulped, easily seeing the point he made. On it, Naruto. She replied as she grabbed the back of his coat with her teeth and tossed him onto her back. In a blur of speed, she shot up into the air before she dive-bombed toward the giant snake. Naruto had her roll forward until her back was facing the snake's head and he kicked off with the kunai in his hand, glowing a bright blue. Please kill it, please don't let this end like it did with me in the real world. Naruto muttered praying. Unfortunately, the snake had quick reflexes and suddenly lunged its head upward with its jaws wide open. Naruto stared into the snake's open maw and scowled at the obvious outcome. Shit, he mumbled as the snake clamped its jaw shut and swallowed him whole. Everyone watching the scene from the projector gasped. Oh, come on. There too. I get eaten by that damn thing even in another reality. Naruto shouted. Kushina and Minato paled. Naruto. Cried out Dash in worry. No kidding. He just got eaten alive. Applejack said, shocked. As she rapidly flew at the snake and kicked its body repeatedly with her hooves. Let him go. She shouted between kicks. Please. Save him. Naruto's parents shouted. Mom, Dad, I'm right here. The blonde said with a deadpan expression. Minato and Kushina both jerked back, blushing with embarrassment. Inside the snake, Naruto hissed at the burning feeling of the digestive fluids. Everyone winced at that and soonest whimpered as gripped Naruto's hands tightly enough to cut off the circulation. And stabbed his kunai into the skin. The seal tag on the knife lit up before a burst of electricity surged through the snake's body, making it convulse in pain. Good one, but not enough. Twilight said, biting her lip. He then formed a cross seal and yelled out, Taj Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, mass shadow clones. Here we go. Thank God that worked. Naruto said. From Dash's point of view, she saw the belly of the convulsing snake slowly expand further and further to the point that it looked like it would pop from the pressure. Unable to take the pain from being overstretched. Should be one word, not a space between the words over and stretched. Twilight said, relaxing. Stop making us pay her. The others shouted at her, but were likewise relieved. The snake disappeared in a plume of smoke, leaving nearly 100 Naruto clones to fall to the ground with their clothes covered in fluids. Rarity gasped in horrified disgust at that. The outfit, she snarled and glared at Naruto, fuming like a winded bull. Ponyville, Rarity's boutique. A certain white-coated unicorn suddenly stiffened and narrowed her eyes. Some pony has ruined the clothes I have made for them. When I get my hooves on them, she left the threat hanging while she shook her right front hoof threateningly. With Naruto and Rainbow Dash. Hey, who put the V in my name? Rainbow Dash said, sounding annoyed. Thank Harmony. Since Rainbow Dash pointed that out instead of Twilight, we don't have to pay. The others cried, making Twilight look hurt. As he dispelled his clones and Dash landed next to him, Naruto pulled at his clothes and sighed. Dash. Yay. As Twilight was going to open her mouth to comment, Fluttershy surprised everyone by speaking up first. You know, it could be the word yay as in yay or nay. She said thoughtfully. Everyone stared at her, shocked and making her embarrassed. Yay or nay? Who talks like that? Twilight asked. I did. So did my sister. Luna pointed out. Twilight gasped and fainted at that. Oh no, the bet was her acting OCD. Never said anything about refunds. Rainbow Dash said as her friends all looked at her, clearly wanting their bits back for all the times Twilight had acted up about a missing H at what she thought was the word ya. Rarity's gonna kill me, isn't she? He deadpanned. Everyone looked at Rarity, who gulped and sheepishly whistled tunelessly, sweat starting to run down her brow. The Pegasus's answer was a sheepish look as she rubbed her head with one of her front hooves. Beesh, everybody's calling you out on that, even our other selves. Applejack said, looking at the fashion diva. Heard our son, that boutique of yours getting firebombed'll be the least of it. Minato warned, making Rarity gulp. 10 minutes later. Okay, I think that's the best I can do, Naruto muttered as he was now standing in the clearing with his clothes soaked from the water used to clean up the digestive fluids. Rarity sighed. Good. He was taking care of the outfit as best he could with what was on hand. Hold still, Blondie. I'll dry you up, Dash stated as she began to fly around him at high speed, forming a small funnel of rainbow-colored wind. When the funnel died down, Naruto was dry, while his naturally spiky hair grew even wilder. Nice tumbleweed afro. Kiba snickered. He shook his head to fix his hair and said, thanks Dash. Now, let's go find my teammates. Do you have to, darling? Sunset asked Naruto. He nodded. Part of the rules. I gotta. He said. And why do you keep calling me that? He asked. Right, murmured Dash with a small frown, still remembering that they ditched Naruto who could have died by that snake. Rainbow Dash made a face while Sakura whimpered at what Minato and Kushina's expressions were as they looked at her. The Jinchuriki and Pegasus blurred through the trees in search of Sasuke and Sakura, the blonde somehow knowing where to go due to a feeling in the back of his head. He sensed a dark and cruel energy source and couldn't help but think that his teammates were near it. With his luck? No doubt. They finally stopped when they were around 30 feet away and peered through a bushy tree branch. They saw Sasuke and Sakura standing on another tree branch across from a woman with a kusa headband on her forehead. Anko cursed under her breath, if only she'd figured out who it was sooner. Naruto couldn't stop the bead of sweat that formed and rolled down his cheek as he felt that the source of the cruel energy was from the woman. Who are you? Sasuke asked in fear, surprising Naruto greatly. What do you want with us? Able to say anything? That would be surprising. Luna shuddered, the twisted feeling coming off the image from the projector was creepy enough. Having to deal with it in person. That was so much worse. The woman chuckled, sending chills down the backs of the 3 genin and 1 Pegasus. Ah, such good questions from you Sasuke, commented the woman with a distinct hiss when she said the Uchiha's name. You look so much like your brother, Itachi. Here we go, that just sets him off. Naruto said, shaking his head. Naruto frowned at that. How did this woman know of the infamous killer of the Uchiha clan? What? Killed his own, the mares all shouted, horrified. What kind of messed up excuse of a family did Sasuke come from? You know of Itachi? Asked Sasuke, his fear replaced by rage. Where is he? Tell me right now. Betting that worked up and throwing himself at Orochimaru, bad idea. Anko grimaced. Now, Sasuke, I still need to answer your earlier questions, chastised the woman with a cruel smirk. Then Naruto, shivered Dash. This chick is creepy. No kidding. Rainbow Dash agreed with her other. Yay, agreed the blonde as he kept his attention on the conversation. Twilight, who had woken up by now, kept her mouth shut, knowing it was an old speech term they were using, much to her near-broke friend's relief. As for your first question. My name is Orochimaru, said the woman in a much more masculine voice. Ick. Pinky said. Naruto froze and started to pale in fear at the name. His mind worked into overdrive as he thought over his options and any kind of strategy for him and his teammates to get out alive. Reputation precedes him, and none of it good. Tsunade muttered. However, one thing came to his mind first. What would? Ash, he began, getting her attention. I want you to dispel yourself right now. What? She asked in shock. Why would you have me? This guy is dangerous, dash. Really dangerous. That snake we dealt with earlier was one of his summoned creatures. Rarity looked ready to explode. So it was him. He was the one who ruined the clothes she made. Kill him. She roared, scaring everyone, even through the mares weren't surprised by the outburst. I want you to get out of here right now. And leave you alone with that. Not a chance. Rainbow Dash shouted. I'm not leaving you, Naruto, she adamantly refused. I won't do that to you. I won't be like your so-called teammates. He smiled sadly at her loyalty, easily seeing that she really was in touch with her harmonic element. Celestia and Luna both smiled and nodded proudly to Rainbow Dash, who blushed. He then surprised her by hugging her, and she slowly returned it unaware of him holding up a half-ram seal. Oh, you wouldn't, Twilight sputtered, what Naruto's other was doing was obvious. I'm sorry, Dash, he whispered, making her eyes grow wide. Naruto don't, she tried to yell, but it was halted by her disappearing in a plume of smoke. Rainbow Dash dropped the book, looking at Naruto in shock. No way, how could? The guy has utterly no morals or vices. If you had to deal with someone like that, would the first thing you did was to make sure the ones who matter to you couldn't get caught in the crosshairs of such a psycho? Naruto asked, though he did feel guilty over what his other had just done, even if he understood why he'd done it. Rainbow Dash opened her mouth, stopped, closed it, then repeated the process a few more times before she crossed her arms with a huff. Damn it, loyalty, it was a matter of loyalty that he sent her other way. She couldn't argue with that. It was her own element. I hope that, if I live through this, you can forgive me, Dash, muttered Naruto. Better live, and while I understand, that doesn't mean I'm not gonna be mad at you. Rainbow Dash huffed. As he readied another kunai with a seal tag and made his way closer. He saw that Orochimaru was finishing his explanation as to why he wanted Sasuke, something about needing his eyes. Body snatcher. And mentally prepped himself to strike. Everyone, if I don't make it out alive, I just wanted to say thank you, he mentally prayed as he envisioned the people close to him. Visions of the Sandaime, the Ichiraku chefs, and the ponies filled his mind, followed by shadowed silhouettes of two figures meant to represent his parents. While that was touching, Naruto's parents both looked bothered by it. Thank you for seeing me as Uzumaki Naruto and treating me like a normal person. Means a lot, Naruto said. This might be my last battle. Don't think that way, darling. Sunset Shimmer said, squeezing Naruto's hands. So I will go down fighting to protect you all. Wiping away the stray tear that threatened to spill, Naruto set his face into a determined frown and leaped out of the tree he was in, gaining the attention of the three below him. Orochimaru narrowed his eyes slightly at the sight of him. The Kyuubi brat. He's not the Kyuubi. Kushina snarled. Probably got lucky and escaped my snake. He shouldn't be much of a bother. That's what you think. Minato said, even if he was worried. Thought the disguised Sannin before he saw Naruto throw down a kunai and fly through hand seals. Kunai Cage Bunshin, kunai shadow clones. Cried the blonde as the single kunai multiplied into 20 and he held up his hands in a ram seal. Fuinjutsu. Rihara, sealing arts. Lightning field. Seiwa Shikamaru said. The seals on the kunai all lit up and lines of electricity linked between them all, making a literal web of lightning that was quickly descending down toward Orochimaru. Hello. Anko and Naruto's parents all said, this was a good start. Said Snake Man frowned at the technique before he disappeared in a swirl of leaves, letting the lightning web cleanly slice through the tree branch he was on, letting the scorched pieces fall to the forest floor. Slippery bastard, Anko hissed, narrowing her eyes. He reappeared on another branch away from the damage with an impressed look on his face. Not bad, however, I thought he was supposed to be incompetent. Funny how lies and slander can be good things in moments like this. Sai said thoughtfully, getting everyone to nod. Naruto landed on the tree branch his teammates were on and readied a kunai with a different seal tag on it. Sasuke, Sakura, I need your help if we want to get out of here alive. Alright. He asked. Like they will. Kurenai said. And was met with silence. He froze in shock before he slowly turned his head to look over his shoulder and saw that they were gone. What? Minato and Kushina roared, bolting to their feet, beyond furious. Sunset looked revolted, sheesh. And to think I used to be bad, but my old personality has nothing on how cruel these two are. He willingly risks his life and in return, they left him to die. Both the Sun and Moon princesses didn't say anything, but they shook their heads in clear disappointment and shame. Naruto didn't deserve to have to work with those two. Chrysalis kept quiet, yet her eyes flashed with sheer anger. It was obvious that for Naruto, the people he cared about were his life and their protection was his purpose. She'd never admit it out loud, but she admired that. To have the ones he was fighting for do that, it was as appalling as if she had abandoned one of her own subjects. Applejack had to have Pinkie Pie hold her back as she tried to reach Sakura to skin her alive. To those that knew her, it wasn't surprising, seeing as Applejack was very family-oriented, so she found it appalling. Rarity wrinkled her nose. What utter garbage. How could you? She shouted, disgusted. Pinkie, for her part, didn't say anything as she was busy holding Applejack back, but her hair deflated like a party balloon as she glared at Sakura. Twilight was horrified, but she had the hardest job, so she couldn't comment. Rainbow Dash, tossing the book aside, lunged at Sakura, almost getting her hands around the grill's throat. How dare he risked his life for you and you do that? You filthy, you foul, you evil, what did he ever do to be cursed to know you even existed? Let go of me, Twilight. This creature needs to die. The loyalty attributed Pegasus roared, just barely being restrained. All she wanted right now was to kill the Haruno in front of her. Fluttershy was so horrified at what had happened, she fainted. Minato formed a Rasengan in either hand, while Kushina's spiked chakra chains erupted from all over her body. Tenten unsealed those hookswords she considered using earlier and advanced on Sakura, while Choji enlarged his fists. Shikamaru's shadow lifted off the ground and thrashed like a mass of tentacles. Hinata assumed a gentle fist stance as her skin was starting to peel off her hands. At the sheer intensity of her chakra, Kiba bared Hei's fangs and his nails turned into claws. Lee and Guy both looked stunned and assumed their taijutsu stances. Anko had massive cobras emerging from her sleeves. Sai gripped his paintbrush so tightly that it almost snapped in one hand and his tanto in the other. Kurenai and Ino prepared respective jutsu that would shatter Sakura's mind utterly. But as advanced on the girl in question, glowing green auras covered their bodies and they suddenly couldn't move. Recognizing what it was from when Guy and Lee were rendered mute, they all shouted in outrage. Chrysalis. I get it. For the record, I get it. But you kill her, she dead, and then what? What can you do to her after that? Death's too quick. The changeling said steelily. The mayor's and Naruto's friends and family all looked at Sakura, then shared a glance with one another and scowled. They got the point, but they didn't like it. That didn't mean Sakura was off the hook though, not by a long shot. They'd come up with tortures and torments while they heard the story. After they all sat back down and Sunset picked up the book from where it had landed when Rainbow Dash threw it aside and then, much to Hinata's fury, resumed her place in Naruto's lap. She started reading from where they had been left off. But before she started reading, she turned to Naruto. Could you not read over my shoulder? She asked. Kind of hard to avoid when you're the one sitting in my lap. Naruto pointed out. Easily fixed. Sunset pipped up, then with a small bit of energy sent from her, Naruto's eyes drooped and he slumped in the chair he and Sunset Shimmer were sharing. Sunset. You shouldn't be using magic right now. Celestia cried, worried for her former pupil. Relax, it was just a small sleeping spell, I've got enough energy for that besides, she said, giving a glare to Sakura. Don't want him to hear what happens next after this witch and her boyfriend left him to fend for himself. At that, everyone else glared at Sakura and muttered that they agreed that what Sunset had done was for the best. They left me again. He mentally raged while Orochimaru cruelly laughed at him. Isn't that something? Asked the man between laughs. You risk your life to help them and they leave you to die. Like a pack of wolves leaving the weakest link. Everyone growled at Sakura, who gulped and tried making herself as small as possible in her chair. Naruto didn't respond, too angry at how foolish she was. I can't believe I actually thought they'd stick around to help me, I'm such a dumbass. Why the hell would they care about me? Should never have been made to work with those two. Choji said, slamming a fist on the table. Well, I suppose I should commend you on your impressive display earlier, Naruto. The blonde broke out of his thoughts as he heard his name. How do you know me? Minato paled. No, Kushina whispered, horror-struck, not even he wouldn't. Sunset stopped her reading, looking grimly at Naruto's parents. Can I just say I am so glad I put him to sleep right now? She asked, gesturing at Naruto's slumped form. Minato and Kushina nodded vigorously. The Sandin chuckled as he removed the face of the woman he was impersonating, revealing pure white skin and yellow, snake-like eyes. I know quite a bit about you, my boy. More than you even know. He chuckled again as the blonde tensed and readied his kunai. Haven't you ever wondered who your parents were, Naruto? Why that he is Celestia gasped. Naruto's parents held one another, terrified. They couldn't stand this. Of course I have, retorted the Uzumaki. What orphan wouldn't? True, but what if I told you that I know exactly who they are? Can we please skip this part? Twilight begged. I already know who they are. Naruto yelled back, half lying since he only knew of his mother. Luna hugged her head, biting her lip. You're not a very good liar, Naruto, retorted the snake before he looked thoughtful. Well, that's not entirely true. You seem to only be partially lying to me, so tell me, which parent do you know? If I had to guess, I would assume that it's your mother Kushina. No more please, no more. Fluttershy begged. Naruto tensed again and threw his kunai frantically at the snake, but it was easily avoided with a lazy lean of the head. I see I hit the nail right on the head. So, you still don't know your father? Sarutobi-sensei must really not have a lot of faith in you if he kept that from you. Okay, I can see why he sent the other me away to protect me or her whatever from this twisted sicko. Rainbow Dash grimaced. Shut up. You don't know anything. Screamed the blonde in anger while his arms began to burn for some reason. What's this feeling? It feels like something wants to burst out of my arms. Oh, what else can go wrong now? Tenten muttered, feeling worried for the other Naruto. Oh, but I do know Naruto, I know the truth about who your father is. He's the Leaf's greatest hero. The one who turned the tides in the Third Great War, he mockingly stated. Hinata choked back a sob. Naruto couldn't think of who the snake was referring to, since the pain in his arms was intensifying dramatically. Your father was Namikaze Minato. The Yondaime Hokage, declared the snake with a cruel smirk, making Naruto freeze in place. No. Minato shouted. Of all the way to. And no, he couldn't be. Nada muttered the blonde in denial, but his rational side kicked in again and laid out the facts. If the Yondaime was his father, then using his son to hold the Kyuubi made much more sense. Plus, they looked alike in almost every way save for Naruto's whisker markings. You know that is pretty obvious, I said, though his belly felt hot the same way it did whenever he thought about Sasuke. Do you see it now, Naruto? Questioned the snake as he pulled out a kunai. Your village hates you while they worship Minato for making you the scapegoat they despise every waking moment. Kushina let out a muffled scream. Sarutobi-sensei knew. How could he not? He what? Oh, that Kiba snarled. Oh, but don't worry, you won't have to deal with the hate anymore, stated the Sannin in a mock-caring tone, because I'll end your suffering right now. You stay away from him. Ino shouted. Naruto's arm screamed in agony while his instincts had him swing against the incoming threat. The result was Naruto swinging an open hand at Orochimaru while the man was at least 10 feet away. However, it wasn't a wasted swing. How couldn't it be? Twilight asked. Since golden chains erupted from his skin. Kushina, still in shock over what had happened to her son's other jaw dropped. No way. Those were. She promptly passed out. It was all too much for her to take. And flew at the snake, who narrowly dodged with a shocked expression. Chakra chains. But that's impossible. Kushina didn't get them until she was a Jonin. Mentally raged the man as he considered his options. Everyone's jaws dropped. Naruto fell to his knees as the chains retracted back into his skin, his arms numb from the sudden release of the burning pain he was feeling earlier. As soon as the chains were full reabsorbed into his skin, his arm fell like dead weight while he gasped for air. Orochimaru narrowed his eyes in thought over the new outcome. Killing the Uzumaki would be an easy feat to do now. Child's play, since the blonde was wide open. But a part of his intelligent mind told him to let the boy live. It even told him to give the team the scroll his team needed to pass. Anko grimaced. Orochimaru thinking of sparing someone was always as bad, if not worse, than him finishing them off. She was glad the twerp was alive, but he was a long way from being okay. Maybe this could work to my advantage. My original self has already given Sasuke the curse mark and knocked out the Kyuubi brat's teammates. Maybe Sasuke's inevitable jealousy of Naruto will help fuel the curse mark. Yes, I believe this will work out just fine. Monster. Sunset spat. He stepped up to the defenseless blonde who didn't even acknowledge his presence. Orochimaru couldn't help but see himself in the Uzumaki. Alone, orphaned, yet still able to surprise his opponents and show incredible feats of skill and power. Anko squirmed in her seat. This wasn't good at all. Walking away because he thought he'd be useful with her old teacher's plans was bad enough, but for Orochimaru to actually see Naruto as a parallel version of himself. It was obvious that the teen was much more than he let on. Being able to deceive even Kabuto was a testament to that. He pulled out the heaven scroll that Team 7 needed and tossed it in front of the Uzumaki. Your teammates are about half a mile north of here. Consider that scroll a gift for your interesting display and bravery. Not many people would choose to stand their ground in my presence. Disgusting, but true. Anko shuddered. I'll be sure to keep a close eye on your future progress, Naruto, so do try and stay alive for me. Sunset stopped and looked at Naruto. She felt really glad he was out cold right now. If he heard any of this. With his P said, the snake dispersed into mud, showing that he was nothing more than a Tsuchi Bunshin, mud clone. Very fitting, seeing as he's low as dirt. Rarity scowled. Naruto's hand numbly moved and grasped the scroll before he pocketed it and stood shakily. His mind was still reeling at the facts given to him and the pain his apparent new skill caused him. "Poor boy," Celesta muttered. His body moved on autopilot as he began to head to where Orochimaru said his team was. When he arrived, he saw the two of them slumped against a tree trunk out cold. "Lucky he sent me off or I would have strangled them." Rainbow Dash fumed. He wordlessly made 2 clones and had them carry his teammates and follow him as he made his way to the central tower. It took the rest of the day to get there, and Naruto was finally starting to regain his mental control from the shocking revelations he had received. "Is that a good thing or a bad thing?" Twilight asked. He curiously looked to his surroundings and saw that he was inside the tower with a plaque in front of him that had a hidden lesson. The blonde scoffed at the simplicity of the answer, which was focusing on the skills you need improvement on. The body, earth, or the mind, heaven. He then opened both scrolls and tossed them to the floor, causing them to erupt into plumes of smoke that revealed Yumi no Iruka, the Chunin who worked at the academy as an instructor. "That's good. He and Naruto always were close. He won't let Naruto go on like this, he'll help," Shikamaru said. Minato and Kushina sighed, mentally asking any and all gods that have, do, and ever will exist to bless the scar-faced Chunin. "Naruto, glad to see you made it as early as you did. The first day, too. Not bad at all," he praised, only receiving a nod in thanks from the blonde before his clones presented his unconscious teammates. "We ran into Orochimaru in the forest and they were knocked out. Be sure to tell the old man, Iruka-sensei. I need to be alone for a bit," informed the Uzumaki as he handed off his teammates to the stunned Chunin and made his way to one of the dorm rooms in the tower. "Not a good sign. Naruto never asks to be alone," Hinata said, feeling broken with helplessness at this. Once inside, Naruto sighed and performed the seals needed to summon Dash before she appeared in a plume of smoke. Her eyes were wide in worry when she saw that they weren't in the forest, but they quickly softened when she saw that Naruto was alive. "Thank Harmony, now I can find out what's up and help him," Rainbow Dash muttered. No way would she let him deal with everything he had to have been going through right now by himself. Anger soon took over and she used her tail to slap his face. The equivalent of a human woman using her hand. Naruto didn't seem fazed by it and merely let her strike him with a dead look in his eyes. Everyone winced at that. Naruto was just out of it. He had every reason to be upset, but his spirit seemed broken. "We're helping him. Don't care what we have to do, we're helping him," Fluttershy said resolutely, making Naruto parents walk over and hug her. Dash didn't seem to notice due to her anger. "Damn it, Naruto. I told you that I wasn't going to leave you. And what do? You send me back and leave me worried sick. Then, you don't even summon me back until you apparently finished your test. What the hell is wrong with you, huh? As much as I don't like that you smacked my baby, I understand your concern about him being why you were upset," Kushina said. He didn't respond and merely stood there with the same expression. Her eyes softened as she walked up to him and leaned down to look his downward gaze in the eye. "Naruto," she asked in worry. "Help him," Rainbow Dash urged her other. Before she was suddenly pulled into a hug by a now tearful blonde. "I'm so sorry, Dash," she whispered as his tears fell on her coat. Her anger was immediately extinguished by his sincere and regretful tone and she hugged him back with her wing. "It's okay, Blondie, I forgive you," she whispered back. "Good, now to help him with dealing with everything he learned about his family," Sunset said, feeling a bit better at reading that. Their moment was interrupted by a sudden knock on the door. "Naruto. It's Kakashi. I need to talk to you." "Spoiled the moment, but as long as you help him," Applejack told the masked man. Naruto looked at Dash who gave him a smile before her eyes glowed and she was surrounded by a swirl of color. When the swirl died down, she was transformed into a necklace with a pendant designed in the exact likeliness of her cutie mark. "Well, wish I could do that handy trick," Rainbow Dash commented. Naruto quickly put it on and tucked it into his vest. "Bet your other enjoys being that close to his abs," Pinkie teased, causing Rainbow Dash to go scarlet. "Yushshsh, shut up, Pinkie Pie," the flyer stuttered, making everyone laugh. Before he opened his door. "Sensei, what did you want to talk about?" "As if that weren't obvious," Twilight said. Poor Naruto. He had so much on his mind right now. Kakashi gave his blonde student a worried frown and he asked, "Naruto, is it true what Iruka just told me? Did you and the others run into Orochimaru?" The blonde looked down and nodded, making the Jonin sigh. "What happened back there, Naruto?" "Simplest summary. Nothing good," Sunset said, shaking her head before going back to reading. Naruto suddenly scowled and looked his sensei with betrayal in his eyes. "Here it comes." Kakashi winced under his mask, knowing what was going to happen and honestly didn't blame Naruto's other self for it. "I listened to you, that's what." Kakashi's eyes widened in surprise at the angered tone. "I placed my trust in my teammates and they ditched me in that forest, not once, but twice." Once when I left to relieve myself and the next when I stopped Orochimaru from killing them back there. I placed my faith in them and hoped that they would back me up, but they left me to die. I'm still surprised that Orochimaru let me live back there. Orochimaru letting him live, that's how unreliable those two are, Anko said, cracking her knuckles as she rubbed her fists. Kakashi's eyes grew wider with horror at every statement. He knew that their teamwork wasn't exactly good, but he never thought that they would just abandon their teammate and leave him to the wolves, so to speak. Naruto, Save it. Interrupted the rightfully angered blonde. I listened to you, even though I knew that they would never be there for me, and I was left alone to die while they ran to save themselves. They didn't even care that they needed me to pass the test and just hightailed it out of there. THERE, not THEIR, Twilight said. Not again. Rarity groaned, pain Rainbow Dash again. By cowards. The blonde's anger was slowly calling on a small amount of the Kyuubi's chakra, making him release killing intent. I've had it, Kakashi. I will never trust those two again, and as soon as I can, I'm removing myself from this team. For the best that he does. Celestia said, nodding firmly. Kakashi tried to calm down the Uzumaki. Naruto, don't do anything rash. I'll talk to Hokage-sama and what? Those two don't deserve his loyalty, why stay? Tenten asked, scowling in disgust. No. I'm done, Kakashi, so don't try to stop me. I won't blame you for their actions, but I sure as hell will not have you try and save a team that obviously does not function as one. Kakashi Tsunade said warningly. The man gulped. He saw the point, but why would the actions of his other self have to come out of his hide? The Jonin sighed dejectedly at his student, knowing that he was absolutely right. I'm so sorry, Naruto, I never imagined that they'd have done that to you, can you forgive me? Like I said earlier. I don't blame you, Sensei, Naruto muttered. There's no need to forgive you for something you didn't do or have any control of. That's good. Kakashi sighed. But, I will never forgive Sasuke or Sakura for what they did. Nor should he. Luna said, making Sakura gulp. I understand, and thank you for not blaming me, replied the Jonin. I still want to make it up for you since I know I could have taught you more than I did. So, if you ever need someone to train you, just come to me. Okay. Naruto gave his teacher a grateful smile and bowed. Thank you, Sensei. Everyone smiled at that. Kakashi gave him an eye smile and rubbed his head in a brotherly way. Don't mention it. Now, you should take the remaining 4 days to rest and prepare for the next test. You'll need it. No kidding, Ino muttered, recalling the preliminary rounds. I will, Sensei, replied the blonde as he re-entered his room and closed the door. Ash transformed back into her real form and gave him a reassuring smile. At least your teacher wants to try and make it up to you. Hey Dash, can you have the others reverse summon me again? What for? That'll be obvious. Rainbow Dash said, rolling her eyes. Something tells me that I'm gonna need some more tricks up my sleeve for the next test, plus, I want to know if Celestia or Luna know what these are, he explained as he struggled to summon the chains he created earlier. Think our others know about those chains? Luna asked her sister, getting a shrug in response. Ash looked at the chains in wonder before she nodded and disappeared in a burst of smoke. Not even 5 minutes later, Naruto did the same. Wonder what we helped teach him? Twilight said. Central Tower Indoor Arena, 4 days later. I hate time skips even if they are necessary. Twilight said, she wanted to see what happened to Naruto after going back to Equestria. Naruto stood next to the remaining genin as they waited for Anko to finish the second test. Team 7 to 10 and Kabuto's team had passed for Konoha, Gaara's team had passed for Suna, and the Odo team for their village. Same lineup as what happened with us. Choji noted. The blonde rubbed his arms as he remembered the training Celestia gave him for his chakra chains. So we do know about them. Luna said, surprised. The Alicorn knew exactly what they were and helped him figure out how to summon and utilize them more fluently. Kushina chuckled deviously, seeing as she used them herself, she could tell that would be good. Luna helped as well by firing many blasts of Mighten, Dark Element chakra. Dark Element, everyone asked. Celestia looked at her sister, all things considered, that sounds appropriate for you. Luna nodded. You shot at my baby. Kushina said, glaring at Luna. Add him to have him ignore outside distractions and focus. Oh, training blasts. Harmless. Hehe, sorry, the Redeed said. For what? He is your son. Why shouldn't you worry for him? Luna asked. After Naruto had informed the ponies of what happened in the Forest of Death, they were disappointed with his teammates. Understatement. Everyone agreed. And Applejack was a few seconds short of having Naruto summon her so that she could mule kick them into next year. Gladly. Applejack said. Luckily, depending on who you asked, Naruto was able to calm her down. He's too big-hearted for his own good and I can't believe that bugs me right now. Sunset said. And tell the mares what he planned to do after the test. They were quick to support his decision. Rarity though did so after lecturing him about taking better care of his clothing. That figures, her friend said, all rolling their eyes. Another thing he did during his 4 days rest was enjoy a congratulatory party that was thrown for him by Pinky. Something he thanked her for with a grateful hug since he had never had anyone throw him any kind of celebration before. Pinky looked shocked at that. Never had a party. Oh, she was fixing that later. No doubt. He was able to enjoy himself and have fun for the first time in a long time and it made the pink mare happy to help him do so. Yep. Pinky said happily. Ash had stuck to Naruto like glue after their little episode in the forest. She had grown incredibly fond of the teen and was able to easily call him a friend. She even followed him out of the summon realm and disguised herself as her necklace form so that she could stay close to him. Loyalty is one thing, but that's a bit much. Twilight said. Unless ooh. Everyone snickered, recalling Pinky's teasing from earlier. Shut up. Rainbow Dash said, going red in the face. The blonde was able to place seals on each of the ponies as well during his stay. Sunset and Twilight both hummed, interested. This could be interesting. The seals were connected to one he had on the back of his neck, which allowed them to communicate with one another mentally. Telepathy seals. Okay, now that sounds cool. Sunset and Twilight both said in unison. Making them blush. Everyone else snickered, but they agreed the idea was awesome. However, it couldn't work across realms. Ah, small flaw. Celestia said. Shame about that, but it would be good nevertheless, just a bit more work needed to fix that. But it was still incredibly useful. He was brought out of his reminiscing by Anko announcing, well brats, you have passed the second exam. So, we'll immediately move on to the next test or at least the event that will weed out the weaker links. Yep. Knew it. The Konoha group that had fought in the exams all said, save a still sleeping Naruto. What are you talking about? Asked Ino with a frown. Some of us just got here and are barely standing. A good point. Twilight said. Not our problem. Retorted the Takebetsu Jonin. Now that's just rude. Rarity huffed, looking at Anko. You knew what you were getting into when you signed up for these exams. That can't be avoided. If they chose this, then it's their responsibility. Tsunade said. Now, we will be having what is known as preliminary bouts to cut down the numbers some more. Too many of you have passed, so we need to weed out some more of you. She then looked at the 21 genin with a scrutinizing gaze, looking for anyone that seemed to be at risk due to their injuries. Well, you're not bad, just doing a job. I respect that. Celestia said to Anko with a nod. However, from here on out you no longer have to worry about how your actions affect your team's future. It's every genin for his or herself. So, if there are any of you who think they can't continue, speak up and tell us now or else shut up and stay put. Only one genin raised his hand. Kabuto. Slimy little weasel. Sakura snapped. Naruto narrowed his eyes as he felt a negative aura from him. The silver-haired teen was allowed to leave, which meant that there were a total of 20 genin remaining. 20, huh? That means that we'll be having a total of 10 matches and 10 maximum genin for the finals, Anko murmured to herself as a part of the wall behind her moved aside to show a screen. She spoke louder as she explained, this device will be what decides your fate. The first 2 genin who will have their preliminary match will be a randomizer lotto between them, huh? Applejack said, wondering who'd go first. 2 rows of names randomly shuffled on the screen with a large VS. In between them both, the genin, their Jonin sensei, and the Sandame who was there to watch the prelims stood and looked intently at the screen as the first 2 names revealed themselves. The result left many of them in shock. On the screen, it read, Uchiha Sasuke vs Hyuga Neji. Hope this Neji guy buries the creep. Twilight said savagely. What if Naruto was primordial and My Little Pony end here and thanks for watching my video till the end.